Hello guys, welcome to Fanfiction Audiobook. Here you find original fan-made audio stories. Enjoy the journey into new worlds.
One Punch Hero, starting with the Glint Glint power, and his wife is the Storm Queen. Part 1. Point A, plant the bomb. Quick, backup fire. Su Cheng suddenly bolted upright in bed. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. His mouth was still shouting tactical commands from that shooting game in his past life. His heart was pounding wildly, as if it were about to jump out of his throat. He gasped for air, his eyes scanning the surroundings in a daze. This wasn't his cheap rental room that was barely a dozen square meters. What met his eyes was a bedroom that was excessively spacious. The minimalist decor, dominated by black, white, and gray tones, exuded a cold, aloof vibe that kept people at a distance. The bed beneath him was as soft as a cloud, and the silky touch of the duvet made him question reality. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see a neatly manicured private garden outside. The sunlight was somewhat blinding. Where is this? Who am I? What am I doing? Before these three classic philosophical questions could finish circling his mind, a sharp, stabbing pain hit him instantly, as if someone were drilling into his temples with an electric drill. Ah! Su Cheng clutched his head and let out a low growl, curling up on the bed. A massive torrent of memories, completely devoid of logic, was crudely shoved into his mind. Countless fragments of images flashed frantically before his eyes. Giant monsters crushing skyscrapers. Winged monsters grinning sinisterly in the sky. Heroes in tight suits fighting amidst the ruins. Blood. Explosions. Desperate screams. And the silhouette of a bald man's back. It took a full 10 minutes for that swelling pain, which felt like his head was about to explode, to gradually subside. Su Cheng was drenched, as if he had just been fished out of water, slumped weakly against the headboard. The confusion in his eyes had vanished, replaced by an indescribable shock and fear. He had undergone transmigration. The kind of thing that only happened in novels had actually landed on his head. Moreover, this wasn't some ancient harem or an immortal realm. This was the world of One Punch Man. A high-risk world where monsters were everywhere and heroes were as common as dogs. Su Cheng swallowed hard, his throat feeling dry. As a veteran otaku who had read the original work, he knew the nature of this world all too well. Don't be fooled by how satisfying it is in the manga when teacher Saitama defeats enemies with one punch. That's because he's the protagonist. For ordinary people, this world is simply hell. Just going out to buy groceries, you might run into a mutated crablant who would tear you to pieces. Going to work, your office building might get stepped on and flattened by a giant. Even if you're just staying at home, a meteor could fall from the sky and wipe you out along with the entire city. In this world, human life is cheaper than grass. Su Cheng instinctively touched his arm. Fair and tender skin. No muscle definition whatsoever. The original owner of this body, the Su Cheng of this world, was a complete weakling. Aside from being somewhat handsome, he was utterly useless. It's over. Su Cheng's heart sank halfway. This kind of start was basically hell difficulty. Without power, one is just a lamb to the slaughter in this world. If he wanted to survive, he could only pray for good luck and hope he didn't live in that monster den, City Z. Just as Su Cheng was panicking, wishing he could find a hole to crawl into immediately. A cold, mechanical voice, sounding like heavenly music, rang out in the depths of his mind. Ding! Divine rank sign in system is activating. Binding host. Su Cheng. Binding progress. 10%. 50%. 99%. Su Cheng was stunned for a moment, then became ecstatic. It's here. The standard equipment for a transmigrator. The golden finger. The heavens haven't abandoned me after all. He clenched his fists tightly, his nails sinking into his flesh, yet he didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. With the system, even in this world where gods and demons dance wildly, he finally had the capital to establish himself. As long as he stayed low and developed steadily, he would eventually make something of himself. Knock, knock, knock. Just then, there was a light knock on the bedroom door. A respectful but cold female voice came from outside. Mr. Su, breakfast is ready. The young miss is already waiting for you in the dining room. Su Cheng took a deep breath, trying his best to calm his racing heart. Since he was here, he might as well make the best of it. He quickly sorted through the memories of the original body in his mind. Once he did, Su Cheng's expression instantly became extremely colorful. It was as if he had swallowed a fly, yet also as if he had won a $5 million lottery. The original owner wasn't just living off a woman, this particular meal was incredibly hard to swallow. The owner of this mansion, the young miss mentioned by the maid, was actually the one standing at the apex of the Hero Association, S-Class Rank 2, the possessor of terrifying psychic powers, Terrible Tornado. And his current identity. Su Cheng looked down at the exquisite platinum wedding ring on his left ring finger. He was Tatsumaki's legal husband. Holy crap. Su Cheng couldn't help but curse in his head. What kind of god-tier start is this? Married to Tatsumaki. That Tsunere, sharp-tongued, controlling, and legal loli who would throw people into the sky with psychic powers at the drop of a hat. The original owner's guts were way too big. Wait, the memories showed that this marriage wasn't out of love at all. It was entirely due to the final wishes of both sets of parents. The original Su Cheng's parents were also heroes who had sacrificed themselves years ago to save Tatsumaki's parents. To repay the debt and fulfill her parents' promise, Tatsumaki had reluctantly accepted this marriage. They had only been married for a month. Rather than a married couple, they were more like roommates. And the kind of roommates where the status was extremely unequal. Tatsumaki's attitude toward him was nothing but coldness or indifference. Su Cheng gave a bitter smile. This life of luxury isn't easy to enjoy. If Tatsumaki was in a bad mood one day, she might twist him into a pretzel with a single thought. However, now wasn't the time to think about that. Since he had taken over the man's body, he had to keep up the act for him. Su Cheng climbed out of bed and went into the bathroom to wash his face. The man in the mirror had sharp features, well-defined brows, and bright eyes. He indeed had a good-looking face. No wonder someone as arrogant as Tatsumaki could reluctantly agree to register the marriage with him. Appearance is justice, that saying holds true everywhere. After tidying his clothes, Su Cheng pushed open the door. The hallway was covered with thick handmade carpets, making his footsteps completely silent. Several abstract paintings he couldn't understand hung on the walls, each of them priceless. Is this the financial power of an S-class hero? Su Cheng clicked his tongue inwardly. He walked through the hallway and arrived at the first-floor dining room. Beside an exaggeratedly long dining table sat a petite figure. That iconic green curly hair shimmered faintly in the sunlight. A black high-slit dress wrapped around her exquisitely curved body. Though she wasn't tall, the queenly aura radiating from her very bones made it impossible to look at her directly. Terrible Tornado. The strongest psychic in this world. And his wife in name. Su Cheng took a deep breath and stepped toward her. Tatsumaki held a knife and fork, elegantly cutting a piece of steak on her plate. Hearing the footsteps, she didn't even look up, merely saying indifferently, "You're up." Her voice was cool, revealing no emotion. Su Cheng pulled out a chair and sat down opposite her. "Yeah, I slept a bit heavily last night." He tried to make his tone sound as natural as possible. Tatsumaki didn't respond, simply putting a small piece of cut steak into her mouth and chewing slowly. Su Cheng watched her. It had to be said, this woman was truly beautiful. Her skin was so fair it seemed to glow, and her features were as delicate as a porcelain doll's. If one ignored her terrifying destructive power, she was absolutely the goddess of countless men's dreams. But Su Cheng knew very well that this rose was not only thorny but also poisonous. Just then, Su Cheng's gaze fell upon Tatsumaki's left hand. There, she also wore a wedding ring. It was a pair with the one on his own hand. At this moment, Su Cheng finally had to accept this absurd reality. He had really become Tatsumaki's man. In this world full of danger, this could be considered the strongest protective umbrella, right? As long as he didn't seek death, even the Monster Association wouldn't dare to lightly touch Tatsumaki's husband. Su Cheng picked up the milk in front of him and took a sip. The warm liquid slid down his throat, dispelling a trace of the chill in his heart. Since I'm here, I'll make the best of it. Since I've become Su Cheng, I'll live well. Use the system to become stronger. As for this, wife of mine. Su Cheng glanced at Tatsumaki's cold and beautiful profile. There's plenty of time ahead. The dining room was very quiet. Only the faint sound of cutlery clinking against porcelain plates could be heard. While Su Cheng ate the exquisite sandwich in front of him, he quickly sorted through the current situation in his mind. The original owner of this body was an independent game developer. To put it nicely, he was a producer. To put it bluntly, he was just a shut-in otaku making indie games. In this world where the entertainment industry was underdeveloped and everyone was busy fleeing for their lives or worshipping heroes, making games was practically a dead end. The original owner had made several games, and all of them had flopped. His income was pitifully meager, unable to even cover the monthly property management fees for this villa. This was also the main reason he couldn't hold his head up high in front of Tatsumaki. The economic base determines the superstructure. As someone living off a woman, where would he get any status in the family? Tatsumaki was the S-class rank 2. Her appearance fees, monster extermination bonuses, and merchandise royalties added up to astronomical figures. The gap between them was deeper than the Mariana Trench. The original owner was self-deprecating and cowardly, always submissive in front of Tatsumaki. But the current Su Cheng was different. He had the system. Even more, he had countless classic game ideas from Earth. Given time, he was confident he could catch up to or even surpass Tatsumaki in terms of both strength and wealth. When that time came, he wouldn't be living off her anymore. He'd be the one standing tall. Eat faster. Tatsumaki suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. She set down her cutlery and picked up a napkin to elegantly wipe the corners of her mouth. Those eyes, shimmering with a green light, swept coldly over Su Cheng. Today is the family banquet. Don't be late. Family banquet. Su Cheng was stunned for a moment, then unearthed the relevant information from a corner of his memory. The so-called family banquet was actually just a routine monthly dinner between Tatsumaki and her younger sister, Fubuki. Although their parents were gone, Tatsumaki placed great importance on this sense of ritual. Moreover, this was the moment she showed the outside world, or rather, showed Fubuki, that she was looking after her useless husband. Even if it was just for show. Su Cheng nodded and increased his eating speed. Got it. He looked up at Tatsumaki. This woman, though she appeared incredibly domineering on the outside, actually carried a heavier burden than anyone. Her parents were dead, she had raised her sister alone, and she had to protect everyone in this world full of malice. Her arrogance was perhaps just a protective layer. Eat slowly, don't choke. Su Cheng replied, acting on some strange impulse. The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted it. The tone sounded too much like an old married couple. Sure enough, Tatsumaki's hand holding the water glass paused slightly. She looked at Su Cheng with some surprise. The old Su Cheng wouldn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of her, let alone give this kind of caring reminder. Today, he seemed a bit different. Tatsumaki gave a cold response, but her originally tight lips seemed to soften by about 0.1 millimeters. At that moment, the progress bar in Su Cheng's mind finally reached the end. Ding! Divine rank check in system binding complete. Newbie benefits have been distributed. Special check in location detected, Tatsumaki's villa. Check in now. Su Cheng's heart jolted, nearly causing him to spill the milk in his hand. It's here. A special location. It seemed this system's check-in mechanism was related to locations. Tatsumaki's villa, as the residence of an S-class hero, certainly counted as a special location. Check-in. Su Cheng thought without hesitation. Ding. Check-in successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the reward. Logia Glint Glint Fruit Perfect version with no side effects. The reward has been stored in the system space. The host can extract and perform fusion at any time. Holy crap. Su Cheng's pupils shrank suddenly. The Glint Glint Fruit. Admiral Kizaru's ability from Pirate King. The body can turn into light, possess the speed of light, fire lasers, and trigger massive explosions. This was one of the top-tier fruits among the Logias. And it was the perfect version with no side effects, meaning he didn't have to worry about becoming a dry land fish. In this world where monsters ran rampant, speed was life. With the speed of light, even if he couldn't win a fight, he could run away. Not to mention the terrifying destructive power of the glint fruit, kicking down a building would be like child's play. Su Cheng felt his heart dancing wildly in his chest. I'm set. I'm totally set now. With this ability, even if he faced a dragon-level monster, he would have the power to fight. He wouldn't even have to act like a mouse seeing a cat in front of Tatsumaki anymore. Perform fusion immediately. The system's prompt sounded again. Su Cheng glanced at Tatsumaki sitting across from him. No. He absolutely could not fuse it here. The commotion of a Logia fruit fusion would certainly not be small. If some golden light shining for miles special effect happened, Tatsumaki would definitely notice. With her suspicious personality, she would surely capture him and slice him up for research. He had to find a place where no one was around. Su Cheng suppressed the excitement in his heart and stuffed the rest of the sandwich into his mouth in a few bites. I'm full. He stood up and pulled out a tissue to wipe his mouth. I'm going to change clothes, I'll be ready in a moment. Without waiting for Tatsumaki's response, he turned and headed upstairs. Though he tried to keep his steps steady, that sense of urgency was impossible to hide. Tatsumaki looked at his back, her brow furrowing slightly. Why is this guy so restless today? Forget it, as long as he doesn't embarrass me. Su Cheng returned to the bedroom and locked the door behind him. He even drew the curtains. Even though it was broad daylight, it was better to be safe than sorry. He sat cross-legged on the bed and took a deep breath to calm his heartbeat. System, fuse the glint fruit. Boom. As the command was given, a warm current instantly appeared out of thin air, surging into his limbs and bones. Then, this warm current turned into scorching lava. No, it was light. Su Cheng felt every one of his cells being torn apart and reorganized. Golden light gushed out from his pores. The entire room was instantly dyed a golden yellow. Fortunately, he had drawn the curtains in advance, otherwise this light would have definitely pierced through the glass and blinded the eyes of any passersby outside. Su Cheng gritted his teeth, desperately holding back any sound. This pain was not physical torture, but a violent reaction caused by a leap in the level of his existence. His body was undergoing elementalization. From a carbon-based organism, he was being transformed into a photonic lifeform. What flowed in his veins was no longer blood, but liquid light. His bones became high-density light crystals. Even the speed of his brain's thoughts was infinitely heightened at this moment. Time seemed to slow down. The dust floating in the air looked as if it were stationary in his eyes. The trajectory of a bird's flapping wings flying past the window was clearly visible. Is this the feeling of light? Su Cheng raised his hand. His originally fair palm had become translucent, with a golden halo flowing inside. With a thought, a ball of dazzling light instantly condensed at his fingertip. Zzzt. The air was scorched by the high temperature, making a faint crackling sound. If he wished, this finger could instantly pierce through a steel plate several meters thick. Power. This was the feeling of controlling power. Su Cheng clenched his fist, and the light instantly retracted, returning to the skin of an ordinary person. Perfect control. System products are indeed top quality. There was no need to slowly develop it like in the original work, he had max-level proficiency right from the start. Su Cheng jumped down from the bed. That feeling of his body being so light it was as if it had no weight almost made him float. He looked at himself in the mirror. His temperament seemed to have undergone some changes. His eyes, which were once a bit decadent, had now become sharp and profound, with golden light faintly flashing within them. Su Cheng stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting his tie. The black suit was well-tailored, accentuating his tall and slender frame. After the fusion with the glint fruit, his physical attributes had been enhanced in every aspect. His previously somewhat pale complexion was now rosy and healthy. The dark circles under his eyes, left from long nights of game development, had also vanished. His entire being looked spirited, even carrying an indefinable, sharp edge. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers at his reflection in the mirror. A golden arc of electricity instantly flashed at his fingertips. Photon body. This feeling was truly wonderful. As long as he wished, his body could instantly decompose into countless light particles, ignoring any physical obstacles. Even if he were cut in half, he could reassemble in an instant. This was the dominance of the Logia. Physical immunity. In this one-punch world, which was dominated by physical attacks, this was practically an invincible defense. Unless he encountered a monster who could use hockey or special energy attacks, no one could hope to harm him in the slightest. Su Cheng took a deep breath, suppressing the eager impulse to test his powers. Keep a low profile. Now was not the time to expose himself. If Tatsumaki found out he suddenly possessed such a heaven-defying ability, it would be too troublesome to explain. He might even be targeted by those old foxes at the Hero Association. He would lay low for now and develop slowly. It wouldn't be too late to reveal his hand once his strength was great enough to ignore all rules. Su Cheng pushed open the door and walked out of the room. Tatsumaki was already in the living room on the first floor, waiting somewhat impatiently. She had changed into a dark green outfit, making her look even more capable. Why are you so slow? Dawdling just like a woman. Seeing Su Cheng come down, Tatsumaki couldn't help but complain. Su Cheng smiled and did not argue. I just took a little time picking out my clothes. Let's go. Tatsumaki gave a cold snort and turned to walk outside. Su Cheng followed behind her, looking at her petite back while thinking to himself. If he gave her a light speed kick right now, would she be able to react? Forget it, it was better to have fewer of these death-seeking thoughts. The two walked out of the villa, where a black luxury limousine was already parked at the entrance. There was no driver. Tatsumaki never used a driver. Her psychokinesis was the best driving system. Get in. Tatsumaki pulled open the driver's side door and slipped inside. Su Cheng consciously sat in the passenger seat. Just as he buckled his seatbelt, the car shot out like an arrow from a bow. Boom. A strong sense of being pushed back into his seat hit him instantly. The needle on the dashboard soared directly to 200 kilometers per hour. This wasn't driving, it was practically flying along the ground. Tatsumaki never looked at road conditions while driving. She didn't slow down for curves either. She used her psychokinesis to forcibly correct the car's trajectory, making it take corners as if it were sliding on rails. If it were the old Su Cheng, he would probably be vomiting his guts out by now. But the current Su Cheng was as steady as a rock. Compared to the speed of light, this speed was practically a snail's crawl. He even had the leisure to turn his head and admire the scenery racing past the window. The clouds are nice today. Tatsumaki glanced at him with some surprise. Why was this guy so calm today? In the past, whenever he sat in my car, his face would turn pale and he'd grip the handle tightly. Today, he's actually looking at the scenery. Could he have been scared stupid? Tatsumaki muttered to herself, but she stepped even harder on the accelerator. The car raced all the way and soon arrived at a private club located in the city center. This was a membership-only establishment that only the true upper class could enter. It was also the regular spot for the two sisters' meals. As the car came to a steady stop, the doorman respectfully pulled open the door. Young Miss Tatsumaki, welcome. Tatsumaki tossed the car keys to the doorman and, without even looking at him, walked straight inside. Su Cheng followed behind like a dutiful bodyguard. They passed through the luxurious lobby and came to a private room on the second floor. As the door opened, a wave of cold air rushed toward them. It wasn't the cold of the air conditioning. Rather, it was a sense of pressure originating from an aura. Inside the private room, a tall woman was sitting on the sofa. She wore a dark green gown, had short black hair, and possessed a cold, noble temperament. A string of pearls hung around her neck, making her snow-white skin stand out even more. Hellish Fubuki. The B-class rank 1 hero. She was also Tatsumaki's biological younger sister. Standing behind her were two men in suits. Eyelashes and Mountain Ape. The core members of the Fubuki group. Seeing Tatsumaki enter, Fubuki immediately stood up. A clear look of tension and awe flashed across her cold, beautiful face. Sister. She lowered her head and called out. Her voice carried an imperceptible tremor. Tatsumaki gave an in response and walked with a queenly stride to the head of the table to sit down. Everyone, sit. She said casually, her tone like one giving orders to subordinates. Only then did Fubuki dare to sit, but she kept her back ramrod straight and only sat on the very edge of the seat. The two bodyguards didn't even dare to breathe loudly, standing obediently in the corner. As for Su Cheng, from the moment they entered until now, Fubuki hadn't even looked him in the eye. She had only given a faint glance and a slight nod as a greeting. In her eyes, this brother-in-law who lacked any ability was just an ordinary person living under her sister's wing. He was even a burden. He simply wasn't worth the attention of a B-class rank 1 hero like her. Su Cheng didn't mind. He pulled out a chair for himself and sat down beside Tatsumaki. The original owner of this body might have felt humiliated by this feeling of being ignored. But he felt it was quite good. The less presence he had, the safer he was. However, under the light element perception of the glint fruit, Su Cheng could clearly see the fluctuations of energy within Fubuki's body. Although it couldn't compare to Tatsumaki's terrifying psychokinesis, which was as vast as the sea, it was still quite impressive. It was just being suppressed by her. She was afraid. Afraid she couldn't surpass her sister, afraid of being denied by her sister. This psychological shadow severely limited the display of her strength. What a contrary little sister. Su Cheng sighed inwardly. The waiters began to serve the food. One exquisite dish after another filled the table. But the atmosphere in the room was so heavy it was suffocating. Fubuki kept her head down, mechanically cutting the food on her plate. Tatsumaki, on the other hand, looked at the dishes critically, frowning from time to time. How have things been lately? Tatsumaki suddenly spoke. Are you still playing around with that Fubuki group? Her tone was full of disdain and mockery. Fubuki's hand trembled, her fork making a piercing screech against the plate. I think the power of a team is useful. She defended in a small voice. Useful. Tatsumaki sneered. A group of weaklings gathered together is still just a group of weaklings. When you encounter real danger, they'll only hold you back. I told you long ago not to play these boring house-playing games. As long as you are strong enough, you don't need companions at all. Fubuki bit her lip, her face turning pale. She wanted to argue, but in the face of her sister's absolute power and authority, she couldn't speak. That fear of being dominated since childhood made her instinctively want to obey. Seeing that the atmosphere was about to drop to the freezing point, Su Cheng sighed. These two sisters acted like they were in a criticism session every time they met. If this continued, would they even be able to eat? Su Cheng picked up the serving chopsticks and placed a piece of fish onto Fubuki's plate. The steamed fish here is good, try some. This sudden action stunned everyone. Fubuki's eyes widened as she looked at the fish on her plate, and then at Su Cheng. She looked completely incredulous. This brother-in-law, who was usually so meek in front of her sister, actually dared to interject at a time like this. And even gave her food. Tatsumaki also stopped her scolding and turned to look at Su Cheng. There was a hint of scrutiny in her eyes. Su Cheng remained unfazed and gave Tatsumaki a piece as well. You eat too, eating more fish is good for the skin. And you still need to grow. He didn't dare say the second half aloud, only muttering it in his heart. Tatsumaki looked at the fish on her plate, her mouth twitching slightly. Was this guy trying to be a peacemaker? However, with Su Cheng interrupting like this, her momentum for lecturing was broken. HMPH. She gave a cold snort and didn't continue to scold Fubuki. Instead, she picked up the fish and put it into her mouth. Watching this scene, the shock in Fubuki's heart was simply beyond words. Sister actually didn't get angry. And she even ate it. Just what kind of spell did this brother-in-law cast on her sister? For the first time, Fubuki looked properly at this man she had always treated as invisible. Su Cheng gave her a smile. His smile was gentle and harmless. The meal was incredibly awkward. Fubuki kept her head down the entire time, like an elementary student who had done something wrong, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Tatsumaki, on the other hand, would occasionally sweep her scrutinizing gaze over Su Cheng, as if trying to see something extraordinary in this cheap husband's face. Su Cheng, however, remained as steady as an old dog. Having eaten and drunk his fill, he wiped his mouth and left. Stepping out of the clubhouse entrance, the sunlight outside was just right. Tatsumaki didn't fly straight back to the Hero Association headquarters as she usually did. She stood by the stretched luxury car, arms crossed, her eyes shimmering with a green luster as they stared at Su Cheng. Get in the car. Su Cheng was stunned for a moment. Where to? Going home. To that trashy studio of yours. Tatsumaki gave a cold snort, pulled open the car door, and sat inside. Since you're my husband in name only, if you end up living too miserably, it's my reputation on the line. I want to see what kind of garbage you're usually tinkering with. Su Cheng rubbed his nose, feeling a bit helpless. This Tsunere habit of hers was probably incurable. But going to the studio was fine too. He also happened to want to check out the mess left behind by his predecessor and plan his future money-making schemes while he was at it. After all, while living off a woman was nice, a man needs some coins in his pocket to stand tall. The car sped along the road. Soon, they arrived at an old street in a bustling downtown area. The place was a mixed bag with all sorts of shops, filled with the atmosphere of everyday life. Su Cheng's studio was on the second floor of a ramen shop called Good Luck Comes. The stairs were narrow and dark, the wall paint was peeling, and they were covered in small advertisements for drain unclogging and fake ids. Tatsumaki stepped out in her high heels, her brow furrowed deep enough to crush a fly. She was enveloped in a faint green psychokinesis barrier, terrified that the dust here might touch her expensive clothes. You work in a place like this. The disdain in Tatsumaki's tone was practically overflowing. It's the early stage of the business, it's normal to have it a bit rough. Su Cheng talked some nonsense as he pulled out his keys to open the paint-chipped security door. Creak. The door hinges let out a piercing friction sound. A gust of air, a mixture of instant ramen, old paper, and some indescribable musty smell, instantly hit them in the face. Tatsumaki instinctively took half a step back and covered her nose. Su Cheng also felt a bit embarrassed. His predecessor's living habits were indeed a bit wild. They walked inside. The space, less than 30 square meters, was piled high with various junk. The floor was covered in scattered game discs, discarded manuscripts, and wires tangled together like a mess of hemp rope. The trash can in the corner was already overflowing, and several half-eaten boxes of instant ramen were still stubbornly holding their ground on the corner of the desk. This wasn't a studio, it was practically a garbage recycling station. This is your career. Tatsumaki stood at the doorway, her gaze icy. Su Cheng, while I didn't expect you to amount to much, you should at least look like a human being, shouldn't you? Su Cheng was about to explain and start tidying up. But he saw Tatsumaki impatiently raise a hand. She lightly crooked her finger. A massive surge of psychokinesis instantly enveloped the entire room. The trash, scrap paper, and ramen boxes scattered on the floor were all caught by an invisible hand and floated into midair. Following that, they automatically sorted themselves in the air, compressed, and finally flew into the trash can in an orderly line. Even the trash bag tied itself into a knot automatically. The messy wires untangled themselves and lined up neatly against the corner of the wall. The dust on the table was swept up by psychokinesis, gathered into a ball of gray, and flew straight out the window. In just 3 short seconds, the doghouse that looked like it had been ransacked by thieves instantly became bright, clean, and spotless. Even the air became much fresher. Su Cheng watched, dumbstruck. Is this the power of an S-class hero? Using it for housekeeping is simply a waste of talent. If I ever see a pigsty like this again, I'll throw you out along with the trash. Tatsumaki clapped her hands, as if she had just done something insignificant. Just then, bang, the already shaky security door was kicked open. A bald fat man with a face full of flesh and a gold chain around his neck burst in aggressively, followed by 2 lackeys. Su Cheng. You loser. Hiding inside and staying quiet, are you? When are you going to pay the rent you owe me? If you don't pay up, believe it or not, I'll smash this crappy computer of yours and throw you off the 2nd floor. The fat man started shouting with his raspy voice as soon as he entered, spit flying everywhere. He completely failed to notice that there was another person in the room. Su Cheng frowned. In his predecessor's memories, this landlord was indeed a snob who often made things difficult for him. But he didn't expect the guy to be so irritable today. Oh ho! You even brought a girl. The fat man finally saw Tatsumaki standing by the window. Because Tatsumaki had her back to the light and was petite, the fat man didn't recognize her for a moment. His beady eyes instantly lit up, and he lecherously looked Tatsumaki's back up and down. Tisk tisk, nice figure. You've got quite the luck with women, Su Cheng. No money for rent, but you have money to pick up girls. Little sister, what future is there following this pauper? Why don't you come have a few drinks with Big Brother? As the fat man spoke, he reached out with his greasy hand, intending to pat Tatsumaki's shoulder. Su Cheng silently lit a candle for the fat man in his heart. There are ways to seek death, but this isn't it. This is Tatsumaki. A terrifying existence that even dragon-level executives from the Monster Association would take a detour to avoid. You're just a rent collector, and you dare to harass her. Get out. A cold word spat from Tatsumaki's mouth. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped by a dozen degrees. The fat man's hand froze in midair, feeling as if it had hit an invisible wall. You fool. Giving you face and you don't want it. Believe it or not, all. The fat man flew into a rage and was about to explode. Tatsumaki slowly turned around. In those green eyes, a heart-palpitating cold light flickered. A terrifying killing intent pressed down like something physical. The fat man's voice came to an abrupt halt. His eyes widened as he looked at the face that frequently appeared on the television news. That signature green curly hair. That high-slit dress. And that gaze that looked at him like he was garbage. Terrible. Terrible. Tornado. The fat man's legs instantly went weak. A warm stream flowed down his pant leg. He pissed himself. He was truly scared shitless. In this world, the status of an S-class hero was higher than that of a mayor. Especially Tatsumaki, who was famous for her bad temper. It was said that last time a monster looked at her for a second too long, she twisted it into a pretzel and scattered its ashes. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. I deserve to die. I was blind. The fat man fell to his knees with a thud and began kowtowing frantically. The floor made a banging sound as his head hit it. His two lackeys had long since collapsed on the floor in terror, like two piles of mud. Noisy. Tatsumaki frowned in disgust. She flicked her finger lightly. Boom. An invisible force slammed directly into the three men. The three were sent flying back as if hit by a cannonball. They passed precisely through the door frame and rolled down the stairs. Screams like slaughtered pigs echoed all the way down. In the future, for garbage like this, just kill them. Leaving them around as an eyesore. Tatsumaki clapped her hands, her tone as casual as if she were talking about stepping on a few ants. Su Cheng gave a bitter smile. This violent aesthetic was indeed very Tatsumaki. Just then, another head peeked in through the doorway. A shiny, bald head. It even reflected light in the sunshine. A blank face paired with dead fish eyes, wearing a hoodie with the word, "Opai," printed on it. He was also carrying a supermarket plastic bag containing a few stalks of discounted green onions. Excuse me, is this place still open for business? The bald man looked at the empty doorway, then at the two people in the room, and scratched his head. I think I just saw a few people fly out. Is everything okay? Su Cheng's pupils shrank suddenly. Saitama. The ceiling of combat power in this world. One Punch Man. Why would he appear here? Su Cheng suppressed the shock in his heart and quickly walked forward. We're open, of course we're open. How can I help you? Saitama blinked and pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. I heard that the sequel to Doki Doki Sisters is sold here. I've looked in several shops and couldn't find it. I heard you're the producer of this game. Su Cheng was stunned for a moment, then realized. Doki Doki Sisters, the dating sim that even King found troublesome in the original series. He didn't expect his predecessor to have made a fan-made sequel to such a game. I have it. Of course I have it. Su Cheng nodded quickly. This was a great opportunity to cling to a powerful ally. Tatsumaki watched this scene coldly from the side. In her eyes, this bald man had absolutely no energy fluctuations from head to toe and had a blank look on his face. he was simply an ordinary trash among ordinary people. Su Cheng, your taste is really getting worse and worse. This kind of stupid-looking guy is also your customer. Tatsumaki mocked without hesitation. Saitama turned his head and looked at Tatsumaki. Ah, it's a child. Are you lost? The air instantly froze. Su Cheng felt like his heart was going to stop beating. Big brother. This is Tatsumaki. You actually called her a child. Even though you're invincible, this is my house. If a fight breaks out, I'm afraid my newly tidied studio will turn into ruins. Several veins instantly popped on Tatsumaki's forehead. The surrounding pebbles began to float uncontrollably. Who are you calling, a child? The air seemed to freeze at this moment. That awkward atmosphere was more uncomfortable than being constipated for a week. Su Cheng felt his scalp tingling. On one side was the ceiling of this world's combat power, the bald devil king who could part the earth's hair with a single punch. On the other side was the hot-tempered, Tsunere Tatsumaki, who would twist people into pretzels at the drop of a hat. If these two ancestors actually started fighting in his dilapidated studio. Never mind this building. The entire street would probably be turned into historical dust. Su Cheng quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. His face wore a professional fake smile reserved for business, and with a flash of his body, he naturally stood between the two. Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. As Su Cheng spoke, he discreetly shot a look at Tatsumaki. The meaning was clear, wifey, give me some face. This is my client, I'm making money here. Tatsumaki gave a cold snort. Her eyes, glowing with green light, sized Saitama up and down. They lingered for 2 seconds on that incredibly tacky, opai, hoodie. The disgust in her eyes was practically overflowing. A guy with such a blank face would only play those boring games you make. Tatsumaki crossed her arms, her body slowly floating up until her toes were a few centimeters off the ground. This was the precursor to her departure. Su Cheng, I have things to do. I don't have the patience to watch you play house here. Remember to crawl back and cook dinner tonight. After saying that, she didn't wait for Su Cheng to reply. With a whoosh, that petite figure transformed into a green stream of light, flying straight out through the hole the fat landlord had been thrown through earlier. She didn't even bother using the door. Su Cheng looked at the large hole that was still shedding dust, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. This spendthrift woman. Does she think fixing the door is free? But at least he had managed to send this great Buddha on her way. Su Cheng breathed a long sigh of relief and turned to look at Saitama. The bald powerhouse was completely unaffected by the previous interlude. He still maintained that dead fish eye expression, his hand tightly clutching that crumpled piece of paper. As if it were a ticket to paradise. That kid flew away. Saitama scratched the back of his smooth head, his tone as flat as if he were discussing discounted eggs at the supermarket. An esper. That's really convenient, not having to walk. Su Cheng gave a dry laugh. Big brother, that's the S-class rank too, Tatsumaki. In your mouth, it becomes convenient not having to walk. But then again, it made sense. In the face of absolute power, all fancy tricks were just passing clouds. Ahem, so, customer, you're here to buy the sequel to Doki Doki Sisters, right? Su Cheng quickly changed the subject. He walked over to the pile of clutter he hadn't had time to organize. Relying on the memories of his original self, he dug out a dust-covered disc case from under a stack of discarded manuscripts. This was a fan-made sequel his original self had poured his heart and soul into. Although the graphics were average, the plot was quite explosive. It definitely suited this bald powerhouse's taste. Su Cheng took a rag and wiped the disc case until it was shiny. Then he handed it to Saitama with both hands. Here, this is the goods you wanted. A citywide exclusive, a limited edition collectible. Saitama took the disc. Those dull dead fish eyes actually sparkled with a strange light when he saw the 2D anime girl on the cover. It was the light of an otaku seeing his favorite figurine. Oh. This is it. Saitama's voice jumped an octave. Thank you so much. I checked several shops, and the owners all said no one sells such niche games anymore. How much is it? As Saitama spoke, he began to pull out a very flat-looking coin purse. He fumbled around inside. counting a few coins. Watching this, Su Cheng felt a wave of pity. Who would have thought? This man with godlike power was so poor he had to count coins just to buy a game. There really was no justice in this world. No need. Su Cheng waved his hand and gave a sincere smile. I originally made this game for myself. Since I've found a kindred spirit, I'll give it to you. Really? Saitama looked up sharply. A look of pleasant surprise appeared on that simple, sketch-like face. Boss, you're a really good person. Great, the money I saved can be used to buy discounted beef at the supermarket next door. Su Cheng. So in your heart, my game is only worth a box of discounted beef. But Su Cheng didn't care. Being able to use a worthless game to gain a boost in Saitama's favorability. This deal was an absolute steal. By the way, boss, since you make games, remember to recommend anything fun to me in the future. Saitama carefully tucked the disc into his shirt. Then he pulled a crumpled business card from his pocket. A string of phone numbers was written on it in crooked handwriting. This is my number. My name is Saitama. I'm a hero for fun. Su Cheng took the card. His hands were slightly trembling. This was Saitama's personal number. With this, if he encountered any monster he couldn't handle in the future, he could just make a call. Wouldn't he be able to walk tall everywhere? No problem, Mr. Saitama. Su Cheng solemnly put the card away. My name is Su Cheng. Come by often. After seeing Saitama off, Su Cheng sat back down in his somewhat wobbly computer chair. Looking at the empty studio, he calculated his next plans in his head. Although he had the glint fruit and a powerful connection like Saitama, one still needed to be strong oneself. Moreover, money was a big issue. He couldn't just live off Tatsumaki forever, could he? Though that free ride was indeed quite nice. Su Cheng turned on the computer. Looking at the messy code on the screen. Masterpieces that were global hits in his previous life surfaced in his mind. Genshin Impact, Black Myth, Elden Ring. In this world where entertainment was extremely scarce, taking any one of them out would be a dimensional strike. Just as Su Cheng was immersed in his grand plan to make money. Woo! 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 An ear-piercing siren suddenly exploded outside the window. The sound was extremely sharp, as if it were trying to pierce one's eardrums. Immediately after, the panicked voice of an announcer came over the street's loudspeakers. Emergency alert! Emergency alert! An unidentified giant creature has appeared in the center of City A. Disaster level is being assessed. Currently designated as demon level. All citizens, please head to the shelters immediately. Repeat. Please head to the shelters immediately. Su Cheng stood up abruptly. He walked to the window. The street outside was already in a state of chaos. The crowd was like startled ants, frantically surging toward the shelters. The sound of car horns, children's crying, and adults screaming were all mixed together. In the distant sky, a thick column of black smoke rose into the air. Flames could faintly be seen flickering. An extremely oppressive and evil aura could be clearly felt by Su Cheng, even from this far away. This aura. Su Cheng narrowed his eyes. The glint fruit power within him began to operate automatically. His eyes instantly turned pure gold. His vision pierced through the obstruction of countless buildings, locking directly onto the source of the disaster. It was a purple-colored monster. 2 antennae grew from its head. It was burly, with knotted muscles. Currently, it was floating in midair, condensing terrifying energy balls in its hands. Every time it threw a ball, a building would be blown to dust. That was Vaccine Man, the first dragon-level monster to appear in the original work. He claimed to be the incarnation of the Earth's will, here to wipe out the bacteria known as humanity. Ding! The system's notification sounded at the right time. Triggered random mission, showing one's talent. Mission description: Vaccine Man is wreaking havoc. Host: please go to the scene and participate in repelling the monster. Mission reward: Observation Hockey, Elementary. The corners of Su Cheng's mouth curled up slightly. Work has arrived. Although according to the original plot, this guy would eventually be killed in one punch by Saitama. Since the system had issued a mission, and he had just obtained the glint fruit and was worried about having nowhere to test it out. Wasn't this a ready-made punching bag? Perfect. Let me see if this so-called dragon-level monster can block a kick at the speed of light. Su Cheng pushed open the window. His entire being instantly transformed into countless golden light particles. Whoosh! A streak of golden light soared into the sky, vanishing into the horizon in an instant. City A. This super metropolis with millions of people was originally a modern steel jungle. Sunlight filtered through the clouds, spilling onto the mirrored glass curtain walls of the buildings, reflecting dazzling spots of light. Office workers, briefcases in hand and earphones in their ears, scurried across crosswalks, rushing for the sake of a minute or two of traffic lights. Right then, that sound rang out. It wasn't an ordinary siren. Nor was it the kind of ambulance wail that makes one numb after hearing it too often. It was a sound so sharp it reached an extreme, a terrifying wave of sound as if someone were scraping a rusted, blunt knife ruthlessly against your eardrums. Woo! Woo! This sound covered almost every corner of City A, penetrating soundproof glass and drilling into everyone's mind. The disaster alarm unique to the Hero Association. Everyone's movements froze in that instant. Passers-by who were just arguing over a taxi froze in place. The salesman who was mid-pitch, spitting words to sell insurance to a client, shut his mouth. Everyone looked up, eyes filled with a fear born of biological instinct, looking at the public screens on the street or pulling out their phones. The image on the screen was a field of static, which then switched to a heavily shaking camera shot. Even through the screen, one could feel how violently the hand of the person holding the camera was shaking. In the center of the frame was a purple nightmare. It was a monster. If it had to be described, it was like some failed product from a Resident Evil lab, maliciously magnified several hundred times. Its purple skin looked like a buildup of bruised blood, covered in disgusting vessel-like patterns that gave off a greasy sheen in the sunlight. Two antennae stood upright on its head like aerials. The monster floated in midair, beneath it a commercial street that had already been turned into ruins. Just moments ago, it had been a bustling pedestrian street, with shops selling milk tea, clothes, and young people playing guitars on the street corners. Now, it was all gone. Nothing remained but a giant crater still emitting black smoke, and half-shattered signs hanging from the surrounding rubble. I am the will of the earth. The monster's voice was like a heavy subwoofer, making the surrounding glass windows buzz and vibrate. Humans are the germs. Only by purging you all can Mother Earth be reborn. Vaccine Man. This dragon-level monster, who claimed to represent the Earth to eliminate humanity, was pronouncing the city's death sentence. Boom. He raised his hand again. Without seeing him exert much effort, a white ball of light that looked very bad instantly condensed on his fingertips. With a casual toss, the light ball fell lightly onto a nearby office building like a pebble thrown by a mischievous child. At the moment of contact, there was no sound. That was because the explosive energy was too concentrated, instantly evaporating the air and forming a vacuum. A fraction of a second later. Boom. The deafening sound of the explosion finally arrived late. That entire 30-plus story building looked as if someone had ruthlessly rubbed an eraser over a blueprint. A huge section in the middle was simply gone. The upper half of the building lost its support and, with a tooth-aching sound of twisting metal, slowly crashed toward the ground. Dust billowed. Countless people were screaming, crying, and running for their lives. Hell. This place had instantly turned into hell. Where are the heroes? Where are the heroes? Someone shouted in despair. This fool association. Taking so much taxpayer money every year, where the hell are they now? Just as despair spread like a plague, two figures charged against the flow of fleeing people toward the source of the terror. Everyone, move. Don't block the way. They were two men. One wore a tight suit adorned with lightning symbols, heavy-looking boots on his feet, and his slicked back hair was meticulously combed. The other had a large smiling face painted on his chest and swung a massive hammer that looked more like a toy than a weapon. A-class hero rank 19, Lightning Max. A-class hero rank 27, Smiling Superman. They had arrived, carrying the confidence unique to professional heroes, or perhaps, the blindness brought on by professional habit. Hey, you purple sweet potato. Lightning Max leapt from the ruins of a building and landed steadily on top of a street lamp. He adjusted his non-existent goggles and struck a pose he thought was cool. Vandalizing public property in broad daylight. Your behavior has seriously violated City A's public security regulations. Surrender peacefully, and perhaps you'll suffer less physical pain. Though he said this, Max's palms were soaked with sweat. As an A-class hero who lived on the edge of life and death, his intuition was screaming in alarm. The guy in front of him was very strong. That sense of pressure was something the screeching demon-level monsters he'd encountered before couldn't even compare to. But he couldn't retreat. Behind him were the civilians who hadn't had time to evacuate. There was also a little girl, clutching a dirty teddy bear, so terrified in the middle of the road that she didn't even dare to cry out loud. Vaccine Man slowly turned his head. In those emotionless compound eyes, Max's figure was reflected. It was like an elephant looking at a suicidal ant. Two more bugs seeking death. Since you're so eager to die, then as representatives of the inferior human species, go to hell first. As soon as he finished speaking, Vaccine Man's figure vanished into thin air. No, he didn't vanish. It was because his movement speed was too fast, reaching the limit of the human eye's capture. Max only felt a blur before his eyes. And a foul wind carrying a strong smell of sulfur rushed at his face. Max, watch out above. Smiling Superman's distorted roar came from the side. Max looked up sharply. A large purple face was almost pressed against his nose. What? Max's pupils instantly shrank to the size of pinheads. Too fast. Is this the strength of this monster? But he was a battle-hardened A-class hero after all. In this critical moment, his body reacted before his brain. Lightning kick. He let out a loud roar. The mechanism in his heels was instantly triggered. The highly concentrated gunpowder preloaded in those special gunpowder boots exploded at this moment. Bang! Fire erupted at his heels. The massive reaction force pushed his right leg, which kicked ruthlessly toward Vaccine Man's chin with a whistling sound that broke the air. This kick could flip even a tank weighing dozens of tons. It could kick through even a wall made of poured steel. This was Lightning Max's proudest ultimate move. Thud. A dull sound. No sound of bones shattering. No sound of flesh colliding. It was more like taking a piece of undercooked noodle and whipping it hard against granite. Max felt as if his leg bone was about to split. The counter shock traveled from his calf all the way to the top of his head, making his brain buzz. And Vaccine Man used only a single finger. That's right, a single finger, used as casually as if he were picking his nose. He lightly blocked the sole of the boot. He didn't retreat even a single millimeter. Even that finger didn't wobble once. This is impossible. The expression on Max's face changed from shock to terror. His full power strike was simply a joke in front of this monster. Too weak. Vaccine Man's voice was full of disdain. So weak that I don't even want to kill you. This is the so-called protector of humanity. It's simply an insult to the word power. After saying that, Vaccine Man's finger curved slightly. He gave it a light flick. Snap. Just like how we flick away an annoying fly in the summer. But this seemingly casual flick contained destructive power. Max didn't even have time to let out a scream. His entire body was like a baseball hit for a home run, instantly flying backward. He drew an afterimage in the air. Bang 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 bang. He crashed through the concrete walls of 3 consecutive buildings behind him. Finally, like a ruined painting, he was deeply embedded into a billboard several hundred meters away. His life or death was unknown. Max. Smiling Superman's eyes turned red as he watched his companion be cleared away like trash. Anger overrode fear. He let out a roar, swung the massive smiling iron hammer in his hand, and charged forward. Giant hammer storm. He spun wildly on the spot. Using centrifugal force, the iron hammer smashed toward Vaccine Man's head with a whistle that tore through the air. This strike carried all his hope. If only he could block him for a bit. Even if just for a second. Boring struggle. Vaccine Man didn't even look at the whistling iron hammer. He simply opened his mouth, facing smiling Superman's direction. He wasn't spitting. Instead, boom, a purple energy orb erupted from his mouth. Its speed was 10 times faster than a bullet. It accurately struck the spinning iron hammer. Crack. The hard alloy hammer was like tofu in front of the energy orb, instantly exploding into fragments. The shockwave from the explosion flipped smiling Superman onto the ground. He was charred all over, and the clown suit he usually wore to bring laughter to children had been burned to tatters. He just lay there on the ground, vomiting large amounts of blood, without even the strength to crawl back up. It was over. Completely over. A-class heroes, the backbone of human combat power, couldn't even last a single move before this monster. Was this the despair of a dragon level? The light in the eyes of those who hadn't run far yet went out. All that remained was despair as deep as an abyss. If even the heroes lost, then who else could save them? Vaccine Man floated in midair. He enjoyed this feeling of being surrounded by fear. Listen, this is the truest voice of you humans. Cry out, despair. This is nature's judgment upon you. He raised both hands high above his head. This time, it wasn't a small ball of light. Countless purple energies began to converge in his palms. A massive energy orb, a full 10 plus meters in diameter, appeared in the sky above City A like a second sun. It emitted an aura that could destroy everything. If this thing were to crash down, let alone this block, a small half of City A would likely be wiped off the map. The little girl was still clutching her teddy bear, sitting in the middle of the road. She stared blankly at the purple sun that was constantly growing larger in the sky. It was too bright. It made her eyes sting with pain. Mama, she called out in a small voice. But her mother had already been separated from her by the crowd of fleeing people earlier. No one could save her. And no one could save this city. Except for that man. Despair. Despair as thick as asphalt. Clogging everyone's throats, making even breathing feel like a luxury. The purple energy ball held aloft by Vaccine Man continued to expand. Like the malicious eye of the Grim Reaper, it stared fixedly at the ants below. The surrounding air warped from the high heat. The asphalt road began to melt, becoming sticky. Under this terrifying energy radiation, the ornamental trees by the roadside withered instantly and even spontaneously combusted. Be destroyed. Vaccine Man grinned hideously, his purple face becoming somewhat distorted with excitement. His arm muscles suddenly bulged. Those lines filled with destructive power showed that he was definitely not joking. He truly intended to take this entire area, along with the screaming chunks of flesh below, and vaporize them all. The little girl closed her eyes. The teddy bear in her arms was squeezed out of shape. This second of waiting for death to arrive felt longer than a lifetime. However, at the very instant before that purple light, capable of destroying everything, was about to fall. A golden light appeared abruptly, without warning, without a sound, because it was simply too fast. That was light, an extremely pure, extremely dazzling golden light, free of any impurities. Like a thick layer of dark clouds suddenly split open by a golden sword. This golden light fell straight down from the clouds on the horizon. Its target was not the Vaccine Man suspended in midair, but rather the helpless little girl in the middle of the road. At this moment, it was as if someone had pressed the pause button on time. Or as if it had been forcibly stretched by some power. If viewed through a lens slowed down 10,000 times, you would see that the moment the golden light hit the ground, it didn't just strike it head on. Instead, it refracted. Yada mirror. An indifferent, flat, yet inexplicably majestic voice traveled rapidly through the air. The moment the golden light touched the ground, it was as if it hit countless invisible mirrors. The beam split into dozens of strands. Like golden tassels, they instantly filled the entire intersection. The little girl only felt a blur before her eyes. There was no imagined pain. No sensation of being torn apart. Just a warm breeze. Then, that suffocating heat vanished. She opened her eyes in confusion. And found she was no longer in the middle of that terrifying road. She was standing next to a park bench several hundred meters away. Surrounding her were people just as dazed as she was. There was the young mother who couldn't find her child. There was the heavily injured and unconscious Lightning Max. And smiling Superman, who had been coughing up blood on the ground just a moment ago. In just these few tenths of a second, everyone in the core blast zone, whether alive or injured, had actually all been teleported to safety. No. It wasn't teleportation. It was speed. Extreme speed. Because in the air, visual afterimages of those golden light trails still lingered. Those golden lines interlaced in the sky, sketching out a complex rescue route map. It was breathtakingly beautiful. And back at the original center of the explosion, in that death zone shrouded in purple light, a slender figure was slowly coalescing from the light. First, golden points of light gathered to form legs. Then the torso. And finally, that well-defined face. Su Cheng. He stood there in midair, with nothing beneath his feet, as if the air itself were his staircase. His black suit didn't have a single wrinkle. His tie, fluttering gently in the wind, exuded an indescribable dash of style. But his entire body was emitting visible golden photons. Like a deity who had just stepped out of mythology. Hey, big guy. Su Cheng, with his hands in his pockets, looked up at Vaccine Man, who was floating even higher in the air, still holding that massive energy bomb, looking somewhat stunned by the sudden disappearance of his targets. His tone was casual. Littering such dangerous items is quite unhygienic. Vaccine Man finally snapped back to his senses. He looked down at this glowing man, who had appeared out of nowhere. A flash of annoyance crossed his purple face. What are you? Another accomplice of those bugs from the Hero Association. There was a hint of wariness in Vaccine Man's voice. What happened in that instant was something even he, a dragon-level monster, hadn't quite seen clearly. These humans who should have been turned to ash had all vanished in an instant. This kind of speed. Even those so-called S-class heroes couldn't achieve it, right? Hero. The corners of Su Cheng's mouth curled up slightly into a playful arc. No, you've misunderstood. I'm just a game developer. Just passing through to see the sights. A game developer. Seeing the sights. The veins on Vaccine Man's forehead throbbed. This was an insult. A blatant insult. In front of him, the messenger representing the will of the earth, someone actually dared to be so nonchalant. Very well, regardless of what you are. Since you want to stand out, then vanish along with this city. Vaccine Man roared. He swung his arm down violently. That massive purple light ball, charged to its limit, crashed down toward Su Cheng with world-destroying aura. Rumble. Before the energy ball even landed, the wind pressure it generated shattered all the surrounding glass. The ground began to crack and crumble. The pressure was as if a mountain were crushing down from above. In the safe zone in the distance, smiling Superman struggled to get up, shouting at the solitary figure standing in midair, enveloped in golden light. Run. You can't take that thing head on. It's pure energy. You'll be vaporized. He knew the physical strength of an A-class hero was dozens of times that of an ordinary person. But in the face of that energy, they were still as fragile as paper. Su Cheng didn't run. He didn't even show any intention of dodging. He simply raised his head slightly, his pupils, now pure gold, reflecting the growing purple light ball. Vaporized. Su Cheng chuckled. The photons within his body surged wildly at this moment. But not for defense. But assimilation. Pity, I'm an energy body too. In the millisecond before the massive purple light ball was about to swallow him, Su Cheng's body suddenly burst apart. Not from being blown apart, but by actively disintegrating into countless light particles barely visible to the naked eye. Whoosh! The massive purple light ball passed through Su Cheng's original position without any resistance. As if passing through a layer of air. It slammed violently into the street below. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion. A massive mushroom cloud rose into the air in the center of a city. The shockwave swept through several surrounding blocks. But this time, no one died. Because everyone had been moved away in advance. In the center of the ruins, the flames were still burning. Vaccine Man panted heavily, staring fixedly at the rolling thick smoke. Is it over? The sensation of a direct hit told him the opponent hadn't dodged. Even a body made of iron should have vaporized under such an attack. This level of power. That flat voice that made Vaccine Man's scalp tingle came once again from the air behind him. And it was even closer than before. Is only enough to be considered setting off fireworks. Countless golden points of light converged rapidly behind him. Reforming into Su Cheng, who was completely unharmed, with not even a hair out of place. Elementalization. Immunity to physical attacks. In this one-punch man world dominated by pure physical and energy wave attacks. This is an unsolvable bug. Dust billowed. The massive crater created by that single kick was bottomless. The air was thick with a nauseating smell of burning and the static sensation brought by high concentration residual energy, making everyone's hair stand on end instinctively. Su Cheng hovered in midair. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, his posture as casual as if he were strolling through his own back garden. In the midst of the swirling dust and chaotic air currents, his crisp black suit didn't even have a single wrinkle. A light breeze blew by. His golden tie fluttered gently. If one looked closely at the surface of his body, they could even see an extremely faint layer of golden light flowing. That was the unique passive defense of a Logia-type devil fruit user. Any dust that attempted to approach him would be vaporized by the high temperature the moment it made contact. Is it not over yet? Su Cheng frowned slightly. His pupils, which had completely turned pure gold, peered through the layers of smoke and locked onto the frantically swelling presence at the bottom of the crater. The feedback from his observation hockey was very clear. Although that light-speed Soru kick just now was powerful enough to shatter a mountaintop, it was clearly not fatal to a dragon-level monster with such abnormally resilient vitality. In fact, it seemed to have had the opposite effect. For example, it had completely enraged the beast. Rooooaar. A roar filled with tyranny, rage, and endless killing intent suddenly erupted from deep underground. The sound was deafening. It was as if a sonic bomb had been detonated right next to one's ear. The glass of several surviving nearby buildings shattered into powder with a series of cracks under the force of that roar. The ground began to vibrate violently. It was as if something terrifying was burrowing its way out from beneath the earth. Immediately after, a terrifyingly thick pillar of purple light blasted through the smoke and soared into the sky. The few white clouds that had been floating in the sky were instantly dispersed by this surge of energy. At the edge of that purple crater, a massive palm suddenly gripped the ground. This hand was 3 times larger than before. The nails on it were as long as sharp scimitars, glinting with a heart-stopping cold light. Vaccine Man, who claimed to be the will of the earth, finally crawled out. But now, his appearance had undergone a world-shaking transformation. If he was in Lord Frieza's initial form before, then now, he was in his ultimate full-power battle form. His height had skyrocketed to over 10 meters, his muscles bulged like inflated rocks, and blue-black veins coiled around his body like tree roots. That originally somewhat comical purple bald head now had several sharp bone spikes growing out of it. 2 slits had torn open on his back, and a pair of massive, demon-like fleshy wings unfurled with a loud rustle. They blotted out the sun. The aura composed of pure killing intent felt like physical gravity pressing down on everyone's hearts. Not only do you destroy the earth. Vaccine Man's voice became deeper and raspier, like 2 pieces of pig iron rubbing together. He slowly raised his head. Those crimson eyes stared fixedly at Su Cheng in the air, flowing with a rage like molten lava. But you also dare to harm the Earth's greatest messenger. Unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. Accompanied by his roar. The surrounding space seemed to distort because of the terrifying energy leaking from his body. The gravel floating in the air actually defied the laws of physics and began to orbit around him. In the distance, the war correspondent, who was carrying a camera and shivering behind a broken wall, had hands shaking as if he had Parkinson's. Viewers, this is simply a nightmare. He shouted incoherently into the camera. The monster has transformed. This pressure, this size, it's never been seen before. That golden hero, can he still hold his ground? It wasn't just the reporter. Everyone watching this battle on their screens had their hearts in their throats. The visual impact was too strong. On one side was a terrifying giant beast like a descending demon god. On the other was a tiny, refined-looking human. The contrast was simply despair-inducing. But Su Cheng didn't feel that way. He looked at the transformed big guy and even had the leisure to whistle. A second transformation. Now this looks a bit more like a boss. However, Su Cheng's tone shifted, carrying a hint of playfulness. Becoming larger also means the target has also become larger. Besides, haven't you misunderstood something? A hint of confusion appeared on Vaccine Man's hideous face. What? Su Cheng slowly withdrew his hands from his pockets. He brought his hands together in front of his chest, seemingly at random, with fingers interlaced. But, between his palms, an incredibly blinding light was frantically gathering and compressing. Light has no weight. No matter how big or heavy you become. Before absolute speed, you're just a stationary target. As his words fell, he pulled his hands apart sharply. ZZZZT. A long sword composed entirely of high-density light particles appeared out of thin air in his hands. The blade was slender and straight, emitting a golden light bright enough to blind one's eyes. It was a brightness that would make even the core of the sun pale in comparison. The surrounding air emitted sharp sonic booms, unable to withstand the high temperature. Aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi. Su Cheng whispered the name of the technique. This was no ordinary laser. This was a physical blade of light formed by compressing countless photons to the extreme. Its sharpness could cut through the vast majority of known substances in this world. Stop your bluffing. Vaccine Man was completely enraged by Su Cheng's dismissive attitude. He simply didn't believe that a mere human could possess such power that even surpassed the gods. Die for me. Vaccine Man opened his bloody maw. This time, it was no longer some energy ball. A deep purple light pillar several meters in diameter, like a world-destroying laser cannon, swept toward Su Cheng with an aura capable of annihilating everything. Wherever this light pillar passed, everything was instantly vaporized. Even space seemed to be scorched through, leaving behind a pitch-black trail. This was a one-hit kill. Vaccine Man intended to erase this annoying glowing bug, along with half the city behind him, from the map. Facing this all-destroying attack, Su Cheng smiled. It was a smile of extreme confidence, even a bit of arrogance. Want to compete with light beams? Pity, I am the progenitor of light. The next instant, Su Cheng's figure disappeared again. No, it wasn't a disappearance. It was because his speed was so fast that only a faint afterimage remained on the retina. He actually charged forward instead of retreating, holding the aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi that could slice through the heavens. He turned into a golden lightning bolt and charged directly into that purple pillar of destruction. Is this guy crazy? Smiling Superman, watching from a distance, was so shocked his jaw nearly hit the floor. Using his body to tank that kind of energy attack. Does he have a death wish? But, the next second, everyone saw a scene they would never forget for the rest of their lives. At the center of that thick purple light pillar, an extremely thin but exceptionally brilliant golden line was surging against the current, like the sharpest scalpel cutting through a block of rotten butter. Su Cheng's body was in an elementalization state, that violent purple energy couldn't harm him in the slightest. As if he were strolling in his own backyard, he pushed through the destructive pillar and instantly reached Vaccine Man's front. He was right there, face to face. Vaccine Man could even see Su Cheng's glittering golden eyelashes. And the upward curve of his lips. Fear. For the first time. This monster representing the Earth's will felt a bone-deep fear from this tiny human. This. Swish. A golden flash passed by. It was too fast. So fast that Vaccine Man's pain receptors didn't even have time to transmit a signal. Su Cheng had already appeared behind him. The aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi in his hand slowly dissipated. He even took the time to leisurely adjust his collar. A second later, PFF'd. A line of blood suddenly burst open on Vaccine Man's indestructible chest. Deep purple blood erupted frantically like a fountain. AAAAAAHHHHH. Vaccine Man let out an agonizingly shrill scream. He looked down. A wound deep enough to see bone extended directly from his shoulder down to his waist. If it weren't for his massive size and high muscle density after the second transformation, that sword strike would have already cleaved him in two. The wound wasn't just a physical cut. It also carried the ultra-high temperature burn unique to photons. The flesh was curled and emitted a foul burnt smell. The wound had been instantly carbonized. This caused his proud high-speed regeneration ability to fail completely. What kind of weapon is this? Vaccine Man clutched his wound, his massive body staggering backward. With every step back, he stomped a large crater into the ground. His eyes no longer held their previous arrogance and condescension. What remained was only panic and incomprehension. Why? Why could this human do this? He was clearly the strongest warrior chosen by the Earth's will. I told you, light has heat. Su Cheng slowly turned around. Standing in midair, he looked down at the battered giant from a height. Like a god examining a disobedient mortal. You thought your body was hard. Before this sword of mine. It's just a slightly thick steak. Su Cheng raised his hand and aimed at Vaccine Man again. Golden light danced at his fingertips. It's about time to end this, isn't it? If we keep fighting, the ground here is going to be ruined by your stomping. You know, real estate prices in City A are very expensive. Hearing this kind of flippant teasing, Vaccine Man felt like his lungs were going to burst with rage. Humiliation. This was a humiliation more painful than death. He, a Grand Dragon-level monster, was actually being criticized for damaging public property. Unforgivable. Since I can't defeat you, then let's die together. Vaccine Man suddenly raised his head. A flash of determined madness crossed his eyes. Since conventional means couldn't kill this glowing fellow, then let everything return to nothingness. The energy core in his body, similar to a nuclear reactor, began to overload frantically. He was going to self-destruct. The air changed. It became incredibly hot and dry. In the middle of the already devastated battlefield, a hot wind suddenly began to blow. That wind carried the scent of death. Vaccine Man's body was undergoing an extremely bizarre transformation. His originally purple-black skin was now turning bright red, like a red-hot branding iron. Beneath the skin, countless surges of violent energy could be clearly seen racing around, as if thousands of fire snakes were fighting inside his veins. His body began to expand irregularly. He looked like a balloon that was about to burst. I will turn this land into a purgatory. Vaccine Man roared toward the sky. His voice carried a madness intent on mutual destruction. He truly intended to stop playing and just flip the table. With his current energy reserves, if he were to fully detonate, the power would likely be no less than a high-yield nuclear bomb detonating at close range in the city center. Never mind this block. The entirety of City A, along with the surrounding cities, would likely turn into the dust of history under this explosion. Radiation, shockwaves, and high temperatures would ensure that not a single blade of grass grows here for the next 100 years. Run. He's going to self-destruct. The faces of the distant A-class heroes instantly turned pale. Though they were battle-hardened, they had never seen such a lunatic. This was true mutual destruction. That sense of despair rising from the bottom of their hearts once again enveloped everyone. Faced with this kind of wide-scale destructive strike. Escape. Where could they escape to? There was simply no time. However, facing this madman who wanted to drag the world down with him, Su Cheng's face still showed no expression of panic. Not only was there no panic, he even seemed a bit speechless. No way, right? Self-destructing just because you can't win. Is the psychological resilience of monsters these days really this poor? Su Cheng sighed. He shook his head somewhat helplessly. If he let this guy blow up here, things would get really out of hand. City A being gone was a small matter. But if the shockwave collapsed Tatsumaki's luxury villa, how was he supposed to keep living off her then? Besides, if that high-maintenance woman came back and saw her home gone, wouldn't she go berserk and tear the earth apart? For the sake of his stable life, this guy must die here. And he had to die quietly. The farce should come to an end. Su Cheng's voice was very soft, yet in the noisy battlefield, it clearly entered everyone's ears. It carried an inexplicable sense of reassurance. In the next second, his body instantly disintegrated, turning into golden points of light that filled the sky. He didn't attack directly. Instead, he flew toward the high sky. He flew to a position even higher than Vaccine Man. Yada Mirror. Radiant Cage. With a thought from Su Cheng, countless golden points of light rapidly arranged and combined in the air around Vaccine Man. Above, below, left, right, in all directions. In an instant, 8 massive mirrors, composed entirely of high-concentration photons appeared out of thin air. These mirrors were ridiculously large, each one was like a city wall, tightly surrounding the expanding vaccine man in the center. These weren't for looking at reflections. They were for refraction. What are you doing? Do you think you can trap me? It's useless. Vaccine man roared hysterically as he looked at the light walls that had suddenly appeared around him. No one can stop me from exploding. Su Cheng's figure appeared upon one of the light mirrors. Stop you. No, 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 you've misunderstood. I just want you to die, a bit more artistically. After saying that, Su Cheng's figure vanished once again. Immediately following, a golden light, blinding to the extreme, shot out from the first mirror. Swoosh. The light hit the opposite mirror. It refracted instantly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The golden light began to bounce frantically between the 8 mirrors. The speed became faster and faster. With every refraction, it accumulated a bit more kinetic energy. Su Cheng was like a photon marble bouncing madly inside a sealed jar. In just one short second, he had refracted tens of thousands of times within that narrow space. Seen from a distance, that cage seemed already filled with liquid light. It had become a radiant, miniature sun. Vaccine man hadn't even reacted to what was happening. He only saw light everywhere. A suffocating kind of light. His self-detonation energy had only just finished charging halfway. Accept your baptism. Ultimate flash. Light speed divine punishment. All the light rays, in that instant, completely stopped refracting. Then they converged into one. It was truly a divine punishment in every sense. A golden pillar of light, dozens of meters thick, descended from the sky. Carrying the terrifying kinetic energy accumulated after tens of thousands of accelerations. Precisely. Without any deviation, it directly pierced through the crown of Vaccine Man's head. There was no sound. Because sound could no longer keep up with this speed. Vaccine Man's massive body, which was still expanding frantically before this pillar of light, was like a pencil drawing being erased by an eraser. It instantly dissolved. First the head, then the neck, the chest, the waist and abdomen. Even that violent energy inside him that was about to explode was forcibly neutralized, decomposed, and evaporated by this higher dimensional photon energy. There was no earth-shattering self-detonation. There was no mushroom cloud. There was only a golden pillar of light connecting heaven and earth, like a divine needle of the sea, firmly pinned into the ground. A few seconds later, the light faded. A bottomless hole appeared on the battlefield. It had been burned out by the light through sheer force. The walls of the hole were as smooth as mirrors, and had even crystallized, turning into shimmering glass. And that insufferable dragon-level monster Vaccine Man, who had been clamoring to destroy humanity, had completely vanished. Not even a trace of residue remained. If not for the lingering foul stench unique to monsters in the air, one might even doubt if he had ever existed. Silence. A deathly silence. In the entire block, only the crackling of distant flames could be heard. Whether it was the survivors, or the heroes lying on the ground, they all had their mouths wide open, staring blankly at the massive hole. Their minds were a complete blank. They won. That monster that even A-class heroes couldn't touch was just gone. A one-shot kill. And he even conveniently resolved a self-detonation crisis capable of destroying the city. Su Cheng's figure reconsolidated in midair. He looked down at the deep hole. He scanned the area carefully with his observation hockey. Life reaction has completely vanished. Looks like he's dead as a doornail. Su Cheng breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, using such a big move for the first time, he himself had been a bit unsure. If he hadn't controlled the power well and punched through City A, it would have been embarrassing. Fortunately, his mastery over the glint fruit was already consummate. System. The mission is complete, right? Ding. Mission showing one's talent has been completed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the reward. Observation Hockey Elementary automatically advanced to intermediate, allowing the prediction of an enemy's brief movements. Hearing the system's notification, the smile on the corner of Su Cheng's mouth deepened. A huge profit. This trip out not only tested his new abilities but also netted him an observation hockey for free. However, he didn't plan to stay here. In the distance, the roar unique to S-class heroes traveling was rapidly approaching. That was the sound of Genos's jet engines. It might even be those higher ups from the Hero Association. Time to withdraw. Running after showing off, that's the style of a true master. Su Cheng didn't want to be surrounded by those people asking questions. Too much trouble. He just wanted to quietly be a game producer living off a woman. Whoosh. Without the slightest hesitation, Su Cheng's form once again turned into countless points of light. Like a gust of wind, he instantly dissipated into the air. About a minute after he left, a yellow figure, carrying a supermarket plastic bag, ran out from behind the ruins like a headless fly. Saitama stood at the edge of the massive, still smoking glass pit. Looking at the empty street, he rubbed his smooth, bald head. He looked completely bewildered. It's over. I thought it was some commotion from a special sale. He looked around. The people who had survived were still staring blankly, muttering things like, Golden Light Hero, and, Descent of a God. Saitama blinked. In those listless dead fish eyes, there was a faint trace of disappointment. Am I late again? I was hoping to get a bit of exercise. He sighed. He looked at the plastic bag in his hand. Forget it, I'll go back and make hot pot. Beef was on sale today, anyway. After saying that, the truly strongest in the world silently turned around. His back looked a bit lonely. Absolutely no one noticed him. Meanwhile, in a small alley several blocks away, Su Cheng's figure reappeared. The golden light on his body had been completely withdrawn. He had returned to being that gentle-looking, somewhat handsome ordinary young man. He pulled a small mirror from his pocket. He carefully checked his hairstyle. Not messy. Perfect. He adjusted his tie. He blended into the crowd of panicked people heading back, hiding his achievement and name, leaving behind only a legend of the Golden Light Hero. Tonight, no one was destined to sleep. Returning to the villa in the busy downtown area, Su Cheng closed the door behind him. That heavy security door cut off the still noisy siren sounds from outside, as if leaving the man of golden light, who had just slaughtered everyone like a god atop those ruins, outside the door. The house was quiet. The expensive leather slippers were still neatly placed in the entryway. That hot-tempered S-class hero fiancé of his hadn't returned yet. This was normal, though. After all, with such a big mess, monsters causing destruction and a mysterious powerhouse appearing, as the trump card of the Hero Association, Tornado was likely throwing a fit at the association headquarters right now, pointing at the noses of those higher-ups and cursing them for their incompetence. Su Cheng took off his crisp black suit. He casually pulled off his tie and threw it on the sofa. He walked to the fridge, took out a can of chilled cola, and popped the tab with a snap. He tilted his head back and took a large gulp. The icy liquid slid all the way down his throat, washing away the last trace of restless heat remaining in his body from the intense battle he had just experienced. Phew. Su Cheng let out a long breath and threw himself heavily into the soft leather sofa. Fighting like that, although acting cool in the sky earlier felt pretty good, that feeling of every nerve being strained was indeed quite mentally taxing. However, now was not the time to lie around like a salted fish. Su Cheng raised his hand and looked at his slender fingers. A faint golden light was flowing there, proof that the power of the glint fruit was surging through his veins. He had power. But it wasn't enough. Far from enough. In this world where you could be crushed by a meteorite just buying groceries, having fists alone isn't enough. You also need money, status, and a cover that allows you to establish yourself and live comfortably in this society. He couldn't really just live off Tornado forever, could he? Though that rice was indeed fragrant and soft. But as a transmigrator with the soul of a chauvinist, if his pockets were cleaner than his face, he'd be the laughingstock of everyone. Gotta make some money. Su Cheng accurately tossed the empty cola can into the trash bin several meters away. He stood up and walked straight toward the simple workshop that originally belonged to his original self, which was filled with cluttered equipment. Although the original self was a failed game developer whose games were basically trash, the equipment he left behind was still passable. Su Cheng sat in the computer chair, his hands resting on the keyboard. The massive memory bank in his mind began to churn wildly. With so many classic AAA masterpieces from Earth in his past life, so many divine works that made countless shut-ins spend money like crazy, In this world where the entertainment industry was extremely scarce and everyone only knew how to run for their lives or watch heroes fight monsters, it was a complete dimensional strike. Which one to choose? Those hardcore souls like games. No, people in this world already live under great pressure. Making them suffer in a game would probably lead them to smash their computers. I need to choose something with beautiful art, novel gameplay, and most importantly, something that makes people willing to shell out money. Su Cheng's eyes suddenly lit up. Genshin Impact. The ACG open world masterpiece that drove countless people crazy. The technology tree of this world is very skewed. Black technology emerges one after another, but the game industry is as backward as a century ago. That sense of exploration in an open world, the combat mechanics of elemental reactions, and those waifu characters that look better than real people. In this world, this is a winning hand. No sooner said than done. Su Cheng's physical fitness had been fully enhanced by the glint fruit. What level could his hand speed reach? If he wanted to, he could completely transform into a human typewriter, even leaving afterimages on the keyboard. Plus, his brain had photon-level calculation speed. Writing code. That was simply easier than drinking water for him. Clatter, clatter. In the small workshop, the dense sound of keyboard typing instantly rang out. The sound merged into one, like a heavy rain wildly drumming on the eaves. Code flowed down the computer screen like a waterfall. Su Cheng's fingers had completely turned into a blurred shadow. He was creating a world. Using this world's top-tier game engine, combined with his superhuman thinking speed, the models, textures, and animation modules that would normally take a team of hundreds several years to produce were rapidly taking shape in his hands like magic. He integrated aesthetics into the code that this world didn't have. The kind of grass that sways with the wind. The kind of shimmering water surface. The physical fluttering effect of a character's skirt when running. With every line of code finished, the smile on Su Cheng's lips deepened. This wasn't just making a game. This was printing money. While Su Cheng was buried in hard work. The outside world. That is, the internet where everyone usually chats and brags, had already exploded. Although City A had been cordoned off, there were quite a few onlookers at the scene. Those blurry videos and photos taken while shivering behind ruins had already spread to every corner via the internet. Holy crap. Brothers. Did you see that? Who exactly is that person glowing with golden light? So cool. I was right there. Seriously. That giant purple monster was about to smash the building, and that dude just went, whoosh, turned into a beam of light, and charged up. Stop bragging, upstairs. I've seen the video, that kick was practically nuclear level, okay. It sent that dragon level monster flying several kilometers. This is too ridiculous. Could it be a secret weapon newly released by the Hero Association? Doesn't seem right. That look doesn't resemble any numbered hero. He wasn't even wearing a bodysuit, he was in a suit, looking like he was going to work. Incredible. This is definitely a hidden powerhouse. I declare that from today on, I am a die-hard fan of the Golden Light boss. The servers of major forums were almost bursting from these excited posts. Mysterious Golden Light powerhouse. One kick kills dragon level. The suit-wearing man who saved the city. These keywords instantly occupied the top 3 spots on the hot search list. It even pushed down the news of S-class hero Puri prisoner's prison break. While waiting for the CG to render, Su Cheng took a moment to glance at the tablet next to him. Looking at those posts that had already been spread as if they were legends, he couldn't help but curl his lips. Surprised already? If you knew that this savior is currently huddled at home typing code to make a game, I wonder what kind of expressions you'd have. He shook his head and ignored the online commotion. He continued to put all his attention into the screen. With the assistance of the system and the super concentration buff brought by the glint fruit. In just over half a day. A trial version demo of Genshin Impact, which, though not long in gameplay, had extremely high completion and graphics so beautiful they were hair-raising, was already sitting quietly on his hard drive. Done. Su Cheng stretched his somewhat sore neck, making a crack sound. He clicked on that game publishing platform which, in his memory, had long since declined and had an interface as ugly as something from the last century. He logged into his original self's account, which had very few followers. Upload. Publish. No publicity, no promotion, he didn't even bother to write a long introduction. He just threw it up there, simple and crude. A cross-generational product like this doesn't need any of those fancy trappings. As long as someone plays it, it will spread like a virus. Su Cheng closed the webpage and looked at the sky outside, which had turned completely dark. An incooperative growl came from his stomach. After being busy all day, it's time to get something to eat. I wonder if that busy young Miss Tornado will come back for dinner tonight. He stood up and stretched lazily. Just then, the computer case, which was piping hot from being overloaded, emitted a whirring sound from the cooling fans, as if recounting the devastation it had endured this afternoon. Su Cheng smiled. He turned and walked out of the room. As for how big a storm this game would cause on the internet, let the bullets fly for a while. City A. Hero Association Headquarters Building. This building, standing in the center of the city like a steel fortress, was brilliantly lit at this moment. The atmosphere in the conference room was so oppressive that it made people breathless. On the giant circular screen, the earth-shattering battle from earlier that day was being replayed over and over again. Although the footage was not very clear due to the distance of the cameras and the terrifying energy interference at the scene. But even so, everyone could still feel the sense of suffocation rushing at them through the screen. The evil aura emanating from that purple monster made the staff responsible for intelligence analysis feel cold in their hands and feet, even just from watching the recording. Everyone, this is the 12th time it has been played today. Sitch, who was sitting at the head of the table, had his brows tightly locked together, furrowed enough to crush a fly. He pointed at Vaccine Man on the screen, who was roaring at the sky in a large crater, his transformed figure blotting out the sky. His tone carried a deep sense of lingering fear. This thing, the intelligence division has already raised its disaster rank from demon level to dragon level, and perhaps, it might even be an entity above mid-dragon level. If it weren't for this mysterious person who suddenly appeared, our City A would likely have been wiped off the map by half today. The high-ranking officials in the conference room were deathly silent. No one refuted this, because this was an ironclad fact. A monster that could easily kill an A-class hero and was even prepared to self-destruct to destroy the city was simply not something that could be dealt with by ordinary police or military forces. The scene changed. It turned to the moment the Golden Light Man appeared. That golden light descending from the sky. That terrifying speed refracting back and forth between several light mirrors. And finally, that pillar of divine punishment light that pierced through heaven and earth. Who exactly is this person? A pot-bellied executive wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and couldn't help but ask. In our hero registry, there is absolutely no such person. This ability looks like both a light-based weapon and some kind of high-level superpower. Could it be a new type of combat weapon developed by Dr. Beaufoy, Metal Knight? At this moment, a corner of the screen lit up. It was the call icon for the S-class hero, Metal Knight, who was connected remotely. Denied. A cold, mechanical voice came from the speaker, carrying an arrogance that kept people at a distance. This is not my technology. With current technological levels, wanting to materialize energy to this density, and also being able to maintain a human form while performing super light speed movement, is simply impossible. This is more like some kind of biological mutation ability. Even Metal Knight denied it. There was another commotion in the conference room. Regardless of who he is, possessing power sufficient to rival or even surpass an S-class hero, we must find him as soon as possible. Sitch slammed the table, his eyes flashing with the light of determination. Investigate. Use all surveillance methods. All intelligence networks. This mysterious powerhouse codenamed Golden Light Man must be recruited to our hero association. If he gets recruited by those monsters or some other faction, the consequences would be unimaginable. And just when the big shots at the hero association were racking their brains over Su Cheng's identity. In another dimension. That is, in the online world where Su Cheng had casually uploaded his game. Things were undergoing a wondrous change. Originally, the gaming platform where Su Cheng uploaded his game had low traffic, and with his simple cover and description, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean at first, without even splashing a ripple. 0 downloads. This embarrassing data held steady for a full 2 hours. Until late at night. A small streamer named Bald Cat staying up late, while listlessly browsing the new games section for material to complain about. By a stroke of fate, his hand slipped and clicked the download button for Genshin Impact. Huh. What kind of name is this? Genshin Impact. It sounds like a cheap knockoff. Although it's only a few hundred megabytes in size, it's probably just some poorly made mini-game. Brothers, since it's already downloaded, let's go in and see what kind of mine this is, so I can help everyone avoid the pit. The streamer yawned while casually joking with the few hundred viewers in the live stream who were also falling asleep. Install. Open. The screen went black for a moment. Immediately after, the animation of the white stone gate that would later haunt the dreams of countless people, accompanied by ethereal, distant, and heavenly background music, slowly appeared on the screen. What the fool? The streamer had just picked up his water cup to take a sip, but the moment he saw this opening scene, he was completely stunned. The water cup stopped at his mouth, and he forgot to drink. This is too exquisite, right? This image quality. This lighting. Is this really an effect that a few hundred megabyte mini-game can produce? Enter the game. When the blonde traveler stood on the edge of the cliff and the world before their eyes instantly unfolded. The comments in the entire live stream stalled for that 1 second. The towering snow-capped mountains in the distance, the grass swaying in the wind nearby, and the white clouds slowly drifting across the sky. And the fruits by the roadside that looked like they could be picked, that sense of freedom where it felt like you could breathe the fresh air. My God. The streamer pressed his face against the screen, his eyes almost popping out. This lighting, this modeling, is this really a game? Isn't this a movie? He tried operating the character to run for a bit. Smooth, silky, without any lag. And the movement of the clothes when the character ran, the rustling sound of feet stepping on the grass, and even the trajectory of that emergency food, Paimon, flying in the air. Every detail was frantically challenging the worldview of the native players of this world. Combat. Try combat. When the protagonist drew their sword, unleashed the first Anemo attack, detonated the nearby pyro slime, and that never-before-seen, swirl reaction, special effect occurred. The live stream exploded. Completely exploded. This is too cool. This impact. This special effect. This is the sense of combat that an S-class hero should have. Stop talking, streamer. Post the link. I want to play. I want to play too. This is the masterpiece of the year. No. It's a masterpiece that is rare to see in a decade. 1 told 10, and 10 told 100. The popularity of this small live stream skyrocketed instantly, rushing straight to the platform's homepage. At the same time, inside a high-rise luxury mansion decorated with extreme extravagance and filled with artistic atmosphere. The A-class rank 1 hero, and also the currently most popular idol star, Sweet Mask. At this moment, he was wearing an expensive silk bathrobe, swirling a glass of red wine in his hand, and scrolling through his tablet with a look of weariness. Boring. Everything is boring stuff. Ugly monsters, ugly news. Why can't this world have a little more beautiful things? His obsessive-compulsive disorder in pursuing ultimate perfection made him full of disdain for the poorly made entertainment products currently on the market. Just as he was about to close the webpage and go to sleep. That game live stream video which suddenly shot up to the trending list caught his attention. Sweet Mask's finger paused. Although it was only the video cover, that composition, that color matching, that precision of character design actually made his picky heart skip a beat inexplicably. A bit interesting. He clicked on the video. A few minutes later. This arrogant idol, who looked down on everyone and couldn't even be bothered by most S-class heroes, actually sat up straight, and those eyes that always carried a critical gaze were now filled with appreciation and astonishment. This is not just a game. This is art. That combat posture, that brilliance woven by the elements, this is what I imagined, the perfect battle. Sweet Mask put down his wine glass. Without even hesitating, he directly used his verified account with tens of millions of followers under this post. He posted a status update. There were no extra words. Only a game screenshot, accompanied by a short but weighty comment. In a world full of ugliness, I saw the light. Even in a virtual world, this kind of beauty is worth being seen by everyone. Boom. Following the posting of this status, Genshin Impact, which was already boiling in small circles, had its fuse completely ignited. This was no longer just a matter for the gaming circle. This was a carnival for the entire internet. Countless Sweet Mask fans flooded into that small game publishing platform like crazy. Those who were originally mocking Su Cheng's description for being too short were now frantically refreshing the download page. Download. 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 Su Cheng's backend data began to grow at an incomprehensible geometric multiple. Skyrocketing like crazy. And in that quiet villa workspace, Su Cheng just turned over, smacked his lips, and was still dreaming a sweet dream of counting money. Completely unaware that his unintentional act had actually led to a great success. The night was thick as ink, the stars completely hidden by the city's dazzling yet somewhat hollow neon lights. The entire city seemed like a startled giant beast. Although the surface clamor had quieted due to the late hour, discussions about that mysterious golden light powerhouse were boiling over in the shadows. Whether it was the night owls still drinking beer and eating skewers on street corners or the keyboard warriors online, all focus converged on the miracle of kicking a dragon-level monster into the distance. But all this noise seemed to be shut out of Su Cheng's studio, located in a high-end villa district. The room was very quiet. There was only the crisp, pleasant tapping of the mechanical keyboard, like dense raindrops hitting plantain leaves, continuous and rhythmic, playing a unique solo in the silence of the deep night. The faint blue light from the screen reflected on Su Cheng's focused and resolute face. At this moment, he was in a wondrous state. The glint fruit he had just perfectly fused with didn't seem to just strengthen his limbs and bones. Even his brain's processing speed had been brought to an inconceivable height by the photonic energy flowing in his veins. His thoughts were like lightning. In the past, when making a game, even writing a simple character action logic might take half a day of scratching his head and countless code revisions, all while worrying about bugs. But now, those complex algorithms and massive data structures were like soldiers lined up in his mind. With a slight movement of his fingers, they would obediently arrange themselves on the screen without any delay or error. Is this what evolution feels like? Su Cheng's fingers almost turned into a blur on the keyboard. If someone were filming with a high-speed camera right now, they would be shocked to find that the letters on the keyboard seemed to be pressed at the exact same time. The progress bar on the screen was growing rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was the final rendering and packaging of the content for Chapter 1 of Genshin Impact. That virtual world, filled with elemental power, a grand narrative, and graphics sufficient to crush all existing games in this world, was about to be born from his hands. Click. With the final heavy press of the Enter key, Su Cheng let out a long breath. He slumped into his ergonomic chair as if he had just finished a marathon. However, this limpness wasn't from exhaustion. It was an indescribable sense of relief and satisfaction. It was the joy of a creator god. Just then, a faint sound of a door opening came from downstairs, the sound of a fingerprint lock motor turning, which was exceptionally clear in the silent night. Following that was the sound of high heels hitting the floor, slightly heavy and no longer as light and arrogant as usual. Su Cheng glanced at the time in the bottom right corner of the computer screen. 2:30 a.m. His always overbearing, cheap wife, Tatsumaki, who acted as if she could hold up the sky with her psychokinesis even if it fell, was back. She was likely exhausted from dealing with the mess in City A today and the questioning from those old fossils at the association. Su Cheng hesitated for a moment. He had originally intended to go straight to sleep. But remembering that she was currently the head of the household and he was the one living off her, he needed to show some social awareness. Besides, if he was going to play the part, he had to go all the way. Favorability isn't built with words, it's built with actions. He stood up, stretched until his joints popped like firecrackers, then pushed open the studio door and walked down the stairs. The main lights in the first-floor living room were off. Only a small, warm yellow wall lamp was left on at the entrance. That petite figure was slumped on the leather sofa. Her green curly hair, usually groomed meticulously, was now a bit messy, with a few strands hanging over her forehead, obscuring her eyes that were always filled with evil chi. Her signature black high heels had been kicked aside. She was curled into a ball, looking like a Persian cat that had been wronged outside and returned to its nest to lick its wounds alone. Hearing the footsteps on the stairs, Tatsumaki's body stiffened slightly. The alertness unique to an S-class hero made her instantly want to sit up straight and maintain her dignity as a powerhouse. But she was truly too tired. Her body merely twitched before going limp again. Not asleep yet. Her voice was a bit raspy and sounded weak, completely lacking the vigor she usually had when scolding people. Su Cheng walked over to the open kitchen, skillfully opened the refrigerator, and checked the ingredients inside. Just finished work. I heard someone and came down to check. He replied casually, taking out 2 eggs, a handful of fresh green onions, and a pack of handmade noodles that, while instant, had a decent texture. Hungry. Tatsumaki didn't answer. She just buried her face in a throw pillow. After several seconds, she let out a muffled, The sound was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. The corners of Su Cheng's mouth curled up slightly. This woman was indeed only a little bit cute when her battery was completely drained. He didn't waste any more words. He started the stove, boiled water, and chopped the green onions. His movements were fluid. Although not at the superhuman speed he used for coding earlier, they possessed a unique sense of rhythm. Before long, the aroma of noodle soup, rich with the scent of green onions and eggs, began to drift through the spacious mansion. This was the simplest plain noodles. No delicacies from land or sea. But in the middle of the night, at a moment of utter exhaustion, a bowl of steaming noodles, one that felt warm just by smelling it, was no less powerful than a full imperial banquet. Tatsumaki's head, which had been buried in the pillow, peeked out slightly. Her nose twitched twice. A flicker of longing flashed in her green eyes. It really smells good. When did this guy learn to cook? Didn't he used to fail even at making instant noodles? Alright, come eat while it's hot. Su Cheng set a bowl of noodles on the dining table, topped with a golden poached egg and sprinkled with green onions. Tatsumaki sluggishly climbed off the sofa. She walked over with heavy steps. She pulled out a chair and sat down. Looking at the excellent presentation of the noodles, she then looked up at Su Cheng, who was standing nearby wiping his hands with a tissue. Don't misunderstand. Tatsumaki picked up the chopsticks, maintaining her last bit of stubbornness with a slight pout. I just don't want to waste food. Since you've already made it, it would be disrespectful to the food if I didn't eat it. Su Cheng nodded with a smile, not exposing her. Yes, yes. Then please do me the honor, Lady Tatsumaki, and don't let it go to waste. Tatsumaki huffed and took a mouthful of noodles. In that instant, her tense little face visibly relaxed. The noodles were chewy and smooth, the broth was savory and rich, and the soft-boiled poached egg was cooked to perfection. The moment she bit into it, the yolk coated the noodles, it was a feast for the taste buds. Delicious. So delicious. She had been busy in the ruins all day today and hadn't even had time for lunch, she was starving. At this point, she didn't care about her ladylike image and lowered her head to devour the food like a whirlwind. Su Cheng pulled out the opposite chair and sat down, holding a glass of warm water, quietly watching her eat. Right now, Tatsumaki had shed the halo of an S-class hero. Without her usual aloof queen persona, she was just an ordinary, somewhat gluttonous young girl. She didn't seem so annoying after all. That game of yours. Halfway through the meal, Tatsumaki seemed to feel awkward because it was too quiet and mumbled indistinctly. I heard, the reception seems okay. Tatsumaki swallowed the noodles, her eyes darting away, not daring to look directly at Su Cheng. I heard that useless girl Fubuki mention it, saying everyone online is talking about something called Genshin Impact. Su Cheng raised an eyebrow. Even Fubuki knows. It seemed the pre-release hype was even better than expected. It's alright, just earning some pocket money. It can't compare to your bonuses of hundreds of millions per mission. Su Cheng's tone was humble, but a smile was hidden in his eyes. HMPH, at least you have some self-awareness. Tatsumaki seemed satisfied with this answer and lifted her chin arrogantly again. But if you really can achieve something, it'll at least save me some face. It'll stop those old guys from gossiping behind my back about me keeping a pretty boy who only knows how to eat for free. Su Cheng sneered inwardly. It's not certain who's keeping whom. Once this game completely blows up, I'll buy this house and make you pay rent. Of course, he only dared to think this in his head. By the way, that golden light guy from today. Tatsumaki put down her chopsticks. She had finished the noodles down to the last drop of soup. She pulled out a tissue to wipe her mouth, her expression becoming serious. Were you near the scene at the time? Su Cheng's heart skipped a beat, but his face remained calm. I was out buying things then. Why? Nothing. Tatsumaki frowned, seemingly recalling an unpleasant image. That guy's aura was very strange. Those useless people at the association actually want to recruit him, even wanting to give him a top S-class ranking directly. It's ridiculous. Someone who just hides and doesn't dare show their face, no matter how strong they are, is nothing but a coward. If I catch him, I'll definitely peel off that skin of his and see what's really inside. Su Cheng felt a chill down his neck. Peel his skin. This woman was as brutal as ever. It seemed he had to keep this secret identity well hidden. If she found out he was that coward, she might twist him into several pieces. Maybe they just don't want to cause trouble. After all, being a hero and dealing with all that media and public opinion is quite exhausting. Su Cheng tentatively tried to defend himself. Excuses of the week. Tatsumaki curled her lip in disdain and stood up. Fine, I'm tired too. I don't feel like wasting words with you. She turned around, her back to Su Cheng. The noodles were okay. Tomorrow morning I want to eat soup dumplings. The kind with broth inside. Having said that, she didn't wait for Su Cheng's agreement. Her body was enveloped in a faint green light, and she floated directly up the stairs. That back view somehow looked like she was fleeing in panic. Su Cheng watched the direction she disappeared in and shook his head with a chuckle. So this is the legendary, ordering a meal. Is this the first step in breaking the ice? He cleared the dishes and returned to the studio. Since the wife had ordered a meal, he had to show off his skills tomorrow morning. But before that, he had to take care of business. Su Cheng sat at the computer, looking at the packaged installation file. He opened the backend. He took a deep breath. Go forth. Let the hicks of this world see what true ninth art looks like. Click. Publish. The moment the progress bar finished, it was as if an invisible nuclear bomb had detonated at the center of this world's internet. Genshin Impact version 1.0 is officially online. Within just 10 minutes of him clicking publish, the curve representing real-time online players in the backend didn't have any ramp-up process at all. It was a straight line pointing directly upward. That wasn't a curve. That was an antenna about to pierce through the server. Downloads. 100,000. 500,000. 1 million. Su Cheng's private message box exploded instantly. Read unread messages pulsed frantically like a virus, the numbers jumping from 99 plus to 999 plus before completely freezing. Countless players flooded in at the same time. The comments section refreshed at a rate of hundreds of posts per second. It's open. It's finally open. First row for the spectacle. Why is the file size so small? Does it really have such good graphics? Holy crap. I'm in. This music. I'm going to cry. This is the other world I've wanted to see in my dreams. Is that storm terror in the opening for real? This sense of pressure is cooler than a dragon-level monster in real life. Stop talking, where's the top-up channel? I want to pull. That acting Grand Master Jean is so beautiful. I want to marry her. Madness. Total madness. In this world lacking spiritual nourishment, what Su Cheng released was not just a game. He released a spiritual poison. A sweet poison that once tasted, one could never quit. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, in the luxurious office of an established game publishing company, the boss, who had been puffing on a cigar with his arm around his secretary, looking worriedly at the dismal quarterly financial report, was suddenly startled by the technical director rushing in. Boss, this is bad. No, this is great. Something huge has happened. The director had run so fast he'd lost a shoe, he was drenched in sweat, his expression looking like he'd seen a ghost or won the lottery. What's the panic? If the sky falls, there are taller people to hold it up. Look at yourself. The boss barked, adjusting his collar. Speak. What happened? The director tremblingly held up a tablet, his voice cracking. That poor guy you said to terminate the contract with. Su Cheng. He just released a game. So, did it flop again? I told you that waste was beyond saving. The boss snorted disdainfully. No, boss. It's a hit. A massive hit. The director shoved the screen into the boss's face. 10 minutes after launch. The revenue has surpassed 100 million. Plop. The freshly lit Cuban cigar in the boss's mouth, worth hundreds of dollars, fell straight onto his crotch. It burned a large hole. But he didn't feel the pain. He only wondered if he was dreaming. 100 million. In 10 minutes. Is this a money printing machine? A smell of burnt fabric filled the office. The boss's handmade Italian custom suit trousers were suffering. The cigar butt was stubbornly sizzling against his thigh. Ah! The delayed pain signal finally reached his brain. The boss jumped up like a fat rat with its tail stepped on, frantically slapping his crotch in a comically ridiculous manner. But at this moment, neither the supervisor who hadn't put his shoes on properly nor the beautiful secretary standing at the door with a look of terror dared to laugh. Because the numbers on that tablet screen were simply terrifying. Every digit flickering there didn't represent ordinary numbers, it was cold, hard cash, astronomical figures that their company couldn't earn in 10 years, even if they worked themselves to death making crappy games. How much did you say? Ignoring the burn on his leg, the boss grabbed the supervisor by the collar, his eyes bulging with a mix of bloodshot veins and greed. 100 million. In 10 minutes. Yen or USD? Yen. But this is just the beginning, boss. This is only the data from the initial top-ups. The supervisor was being strangled to the point of suffocation, his face turning the color of pig liver as he desperately waved the tablet in his hand. Look. The servers are about to explode. Thousands of people are trying to top up every second. It's practically a money-swallowing beast. And the reviews are overwhelmingly positive. Everyone's calling them waifu. The boss let go, and the supervisor collapsed onto the floor, panting heavily. The boss tremblingly took the tablet, watching the data line soaring into the sky, his breathing as heavy as a bellows. Su Cheng. He had heard his subordinates mention this name just 2 days ago. That poor kid living in a dilapidated apartment, who hadn't turned in a draft for months and whose games were more boring than an old lady's foot-binding raps. He remembered what he had said back then. Tell him to get lost. Don't let that trash hog our server resources. Terminate the contract. Terminate it immediately. The boss felt his vision go dark, and tears of regret almost burst out on the spot. That was a money tree. That wasn't trash, that was the god of wealth descending to earth. If only he hadn't been so heartless then, if only he had taken one more look at his demo. Right now, even half of this money, even 10%, would have been his. Quick. Call him, now. The boss roared hysterically at the secretary. Contact him. No matter what it takes. You must get in touch with Mr. Su. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. It was just his subordinates being incompetent. We'll give him the best contract. No. Give him shares directly. Make sure he signs the publishing rights for this game over to us. If you can't sign him, you're all packing your bags and getting lost tomorrow. Go clean toilets. The entire company was instantly thrown into chaos. Everyone started looking for the contact information they had previously tossed into the trash like madmen. Meanwhile, in the city center dozens of kilometers away. In the city's most exclusive wealthy district, inside a penthouse filled with modern artistic flair. Outside the massive floor-to-ceiling windows was the night view of the entire city. Inside, the scent of expensive incense drifted through the air, a delicate fragrance blended from several precious flowers and herbs that could calm the mind. A man wearing a silk bathrobe, with skin more delicate than a woman's and features so exquisite they were beyond reproach, sat elegantly by a white piano. Sweet mask. A-class rank 1, a superhero who actually possessed S-class strength, and the perfect idol in the hearts of thousands of young girls. He had an almost pathological obsession with beauty. In this world full of ugly monsters, he felt that only by completely eradicating ugliness could true beauty be ushered in. What a boring day. His long fingers casually struck a few notes on the keys, his gaze somewhat vacant. Recently, those monsters had been appearing more and more, in all sorts of strange and disgusting forms that made him want to retch. Although killing them was easy, the visual pollution left him feeling weary. Isn't there anything that truly catches the eye? He casually picked up the limited edition tablet resting on the piano stand. He habitually browsed social media to see the praise from his fans, it was a form of pastime. Suddenly, a trending topic caught his eye. Hashtag true otherworld scenery hash. Hashtag this is the fighting stance justice should have hash. Hashtag Su Cheng's masterpiece hash. Sweet Mosk's brow furrowed slightly. Scenery. Masterpiece. Such sensationalist marketing buzzwords are truly disgusting. He intended to swipe past it, but his extremely fastidious aesthetic sense inadvertently caught a glimpse of a corner of the cover image. It was a screenshot from a game. Oathkeeper's Point under the moonlight, where the anemo element condensed into a breeze blowing through dandelions, and the distant starry sky was pure and profound. No blood. No slime. Only an extremely pure, harmonious beauty that made one feel as if their soul was being cleansed with a single glance. Sweet Mosk's hand stopped. Interesting. As if possessed, he clicked on it. This moment was like opening Pandora's box. As the most famous star in this world, he had seen countless so-called big productions, but never had one been like this, Genshin Impact, where every detail hit his aesthetic sweet spots. That character design, the logic of every strand of hair's movement, the light effects of elemental bursts during combat. Especially the character named Jean, with her upright, awe-inspiring posture as she wielded her sword to protect the city. This was simply the most perfect manifestation of justice in his heart. This is justice. This is what a hero should look like. How can those muscle-bound barbarians who only know how to brawl compare to this elegance? Sweet Mask stood up, his eyes shining with a near fanatical light. He even forgot his status, holding the tablet and watching for over an hour like an ordinary otaku. Finally, he logged into his official account, which was followed by hundreds of millions of fans. Without hesitation and without letting his manager review it, he clicked repost directly, and added a highly provocative caption. In this world filled with ugly monsters, I have seen true radiance. This is not just a game, it is the ultimate interpretation of the aesthetics of justice. The creator named Su Cheng, you understand beauty. At Su Cheng at Genshin Impact. As soon as this post went out, the effect was more terrifying than throwing a torch into an oil depot. Am I seeing this right? Lord Mask actually recommended a game. Heavens. If a game caught Lord Mask's eye, how advanced must it be? Who is Su Cheng? Doesn't matter. If Lord Mask recommended it, that's it, I'm diving in. Genshin Impact, which was already popular, instantly broke through cultural barriers thanks to this top-tier traffic boost. Countless fans who didn't usually play games, housewives, and even onlookers who were still on the fence all rushed in at once. If Su Cheng's studio's server were a living person, it would likely be foaming at the mouth and being rushed to the ICU by now. Meanwhile, the protagonist, Su Cheng, was sitting with his legs crossed, watching the balance in his back-end account continue to rise crazily. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions, hundreds of millions. That bank account balance, which originally only had a few hundred yuan and required careful calculation even for food deliveries, had now turned into a dizzying long string of digits. Tisk, tisk, tisk. This money comes too easily. Su Cheng took a swig of the cola beside him and shook his head. As expected, no matter which world it is, 2D money is the easiest to earn. Although the glint glint fruit gave him great power. But that sense of progression that required constant training, development, and even risking his life to fight monsters. How could it compare to the reality of watching money flow into his pocket like a waterfall? With this money, many plans could be moved forward. For example, buying some top-tier nutrient solutions for his body, which currently seemed to have no side effects, but who knew what the future held. For instance, upgrading this simple studio and replacing everything with supercomputers. And then, Su Cheng looked up at the ceiling. Above was the master bedroom, where Tatsumaki was sleeping. I should buy a gift for that Tsunere young miss. After all, I'm staying in her place, even if it's legal, I should show some appreciation. I heard that although she's strong, she's actually still a young girl at heart. She'd probably like something shiny, right? Or, buy that limited edition tea set. She seems to like drinking tea. Su Cheng rubbed his chin, a playful smile playing on his lips. He was already starting to look forward to it. To what kind of wonderful expression would appear on that woman's face when he tossed an expensive gift in front of her? What kind of reaction she would have? Shock? Disgust? Or, that hint of shyness she couldn't hide? Just then, the phone on the desk began to vibrate frantically as if it were having a seizure. Su Cheng picked it up to look. They were all calls from the publisher boss who had previously blacklisted him. There were over 50 calls. And even dozens of text messages. The content was incredibly cringeworthy, calling him things like, Grandpa Su, Daddy Su, and, Ancestor Su. Su Cheng sneered. Now you know how to call me Daddy. Too late. He swiped his finger lightly. And hung up immediately. Then he added the number to his blacklist. Listening to the busy signal from the other end after being hung up on. Su Cheng felt the sound was more beautiful than any of Beethoven's symphonies. Refreshing. The first rays of morning light pierced through the thin morning mist, as if coating this city, which had just weathered a monster crisis, in a gentle golden border. Birds chirped on the branches, completely unaware that this city had almost turned into a pile of rubble yesterday. The villa was very quiet. But inside the kitchen, things were in full swing. Su Cheng woke up early today. Even though he had stayed up until past 2 in the morning, under the abnormal physical enhancement of the glint fruit, he only needed a couple of hours of sleep to feel energetic enough to fight a tiger. He wore a simple white t-shirt and a somewhat cute light blue apron. If his fanatical gaming fans saw this, look, they would probably scream and faint. Today's task was arduous. Because the biggest boss of the house, young Miss Tatsumaki, had personally ordered a meal last night. Xiaolongbao, the kind with soup inside. Thud 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 thud. The kitchen knife on the cutting board seemed to come alive in Su Cheng's hand, moving so fast the blade was a blur, leaving only a mass of silver light. Top-grade black pork was minced into a paste, mixed with ginger and scallion water to remove any gaminess, and then combined with the pork skin aspic he had specially simmered last night. This was the secret to the Xiaolongbao's juice explosion. When the aspic melted from the heat, it would turn into a rich, delicious soup locked inside the thin dough skin. Kneading the dough, rolling the skins, and wrapping the filling. Su Cheng's technique was even more skilled than the old masters of century-old shops. Before long, Xiaolongbao's exquisite as works of art, each with 18 pleats at the top, were neatly arranged in bamboo steamers. Onto the pot, turn on the fire. In addition, Su Cheng also simmered a pot of preserved egg and lean meat porridge. It was slow cooked with rich broth until the rice grains bloomed, becoming so thick and silky it could coat a spoon. He even fried a few golden, crispy dough sticks and tossed together a refreshing smashed cucumber salad to cut through the richness. For a moment, the entire first-floor hall was filled with that domineering, homely aroma of food. The second floor. On the luxurious king-sized bed in the master bedroom, which was large enough for 5 people to sleep on. Tatsumaki held her quilt, her entire body sinking into the soft mattress like a koala that hadn't woken up yet. Her green curly hair was a messy nest on her head, with a few strands playfully sticking to the corner of her mouth. She was truly exhausted from tracking clues about that monster last night. She was even using her superpowers to throw rocks in her dreams. Tatsumaki rolled over, letting out an unconscious murmur, wanting to continue her sweet slumber. However, something was attacking her nose. That smell. First, a faint scent of meat, then a rich aroma of wheat, and finally an indescribable savoriness. It was as if an invisible little person was gently scratching the tip of her nose with a feather. Seduction. Blatant seduction. Tatsumaki's stomach let out an ungraceful growl, breaking the morning silence. Smells so good. She opened her eyes dizzily, her gaze carrying the confusion of just waking up and a hint of desire awakened by the aroma. Her body reacted before her brain. She floated directly up Too lazy to even walk, she hovered half a meter off the ground, wrapped in her thin silk nightgown, and drifted out of the room as if being led by the nose by that scent. She floated all the way down the stairs. Into the dining room. When she saw the breakfast table, which was so lavish it was almost exaggerated. Tatsumaki's sleepy eyes instantly widened, her drowsiness vanishing and being replaced by two bright little stars. Steaming bamboo baskets, plump white xiaolongbao faintly revealing the color of the soup inside. Emerald green chopped scallions sprinkled over thick white porridge. And those golden, crispy fried dough sticks. This is breakfast. Is it New Year's? Tatsumaki couldn't help but swallow, feeling her mouth water frantically. You're awake. Su Cheng happened to walk out of the kitchen carrying the last two small side dishes, untying his apron. Looking at the S-Class rank 2 with her messy hair and eyes glued to the buns, completely lacking her usual overbearing image, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Go wash your face and brush your teeth. It's just coming out of the steamer. Tatsumaki finally snapped out of it, realizing her current image might be a bit unbefitting of her status. Her cheeks instantly flushed red, like a ripe apple. What are you laughing at? What's so funny? I just came down to get a glass of water. It's not like I was attracted by this smell. She crossed her arms, turned her head away, and gave a Tsunere HMPH. But her body honestly floated toward the bathroom, her speed clearly much faster than usual. 3 minutes later, a freshened up Tatsumaki sat at the dining table. Chopsticks in hand, she looked at the steaming xiaolongbao in front of her. Careful, it's hot. There's. Before Su Cheng could say the word, soup. Tatsumaki had already impatiently picked one up and stuffed the whole thing into her mouth. Squirt. The scalding, delicious meat juice burst out the moment she bit through the skin. Ah! Hot hot hot. Tatsumaki's small face crumpled, her mouth slightly open as she huffed out hot air, wanting to spit out the burning little bomb, yet the extreme savoriness made her unable to let go. Tears were even welling up in her eyes. I told you to be careful. Su Cheng shook his head helplessly and quickly handed her a glass of cold water. Tatsumaki gulped down a large mouthful of cold water before she finally managed to swallow the bun. Immediately after, the rich meat aroma exploded in her mouth, and the sense of satisfaction made the annoyance of being burned vanish instantly. HMPH, it's barely acceptable. She gave a stubborn evaluation, but her chopsticks were already reaching for the second one. This kind of thing is just a combination of flour and meat, there's no technical skill involved. It's mainly because the ingredients are good. I'll just try a little. Since you worked so hard to make it, you'd definitely cry if I didn't finish it. The great Tatsumaki, who said she would just try a little. Personally finished a basket and a half of buns, drank 2 bowls of porridge, and polished off a plate of fried dough sticks. Seeing her eat with her cheeks puffed out like a hamster hoarding food, Su Cheng felt this was probably the greatest joy of cooking. Feeding success. Shouldn't this favorability rating go up by a few dozen points? Woo. Woo. Just as this warm atmosphere was heating up and Tatsumaki was wrestling with the last xiaolongbao. That annoying, sharp alarm sounded throughout the entire block, completely ruining the mood. It was even more urgent than when Vaccine Man attacked last time. The huge TV screen on the living room wall automatically lit up, with a red warning box taking up almost the entire picture. Emergency alert. D-City is facing a major crisis. A supergiant organism exceeding 500 meters in height is approaching the city center. Everything in its path is destroyed. The city destruction rate has reached 80%. Disaster rank, preliminarily determined as peak demon level. It may even reach dragon level. All S-class heroes, please stand by immediately. The screen switched to the scene. A super giant that seemed to touch the sky appeared, bare-chested. With every step he took, the earth shook violently, and countless skyscrapers were crushed under his feet like Lego bricks. The sense of oppression was suffocating even through the screen. Tatsumaki glanced at the screen, her face, which had just been flushed with satisfaction, instantly turning cold. Her green eyes were full of killing intent. Fooled trash. Not earlier, not later, but it had to be right now. She slammed her chopsticks onto the table. It was a literal slam. Because those expensive rosewood chopsticks directly turned into powder. It seems if I don't clean up these pieces of trash, I won't even be able to eat breakfast in peace. A strong green whirlwind erupted around her, and she hovered directly into the air. The surrounding tables and chairs trembled under this aura. I'm leaving. You do the dishes. With that, boom. The villa's door swung open automatically, and a green stream of light, accompanied by a sonic boom cloud, instantly shot into the sky, flying toward D-City at extreme speed. Su Cheng looked at the remains of the bun she hadn't had time to swallow and the dining room, which had been left a bit messy by the wind. He sighed helplessly. What a violent woman. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked toward the distant horizon. D-City. A 500-meter giant. Is it that famous, younger brother, Marugori? Su Cheng narrowed his eyes, golden light swirling deep in his pupils. According to the original plot, although this guy was eventually taken down by Saitama with one punch. At the moment he fell, the damage caused was devastating. If that massive body crashed down, it would probably kill tens of thousands of people. And, a big guy of that level should yield something good from a check-in, right? System, are there any check-in tasks in D-City? Ding. Large-scale plot node detected. Check-in location giant's shoulder can be activated. The corners of Su Cheng's mouth curled up slightly as he untied his apron. He tossed it aside casually. Since my wife has gone to work overtime, I can't just sit around either. A light speed check-in, and I should still be back in time for lunch. In the next second, his body instantly decomposed into countless dazzling light particles. They passed directly through the window and vanished into the horizon. City D. This bustling metropolis with a population of millions was a famous industrial hub on ordinary days, filled with towering chimneys and residential areas packed as tight as sardines in a can. But at this moment, it was no longer a city for humans to live in, it had become a complete and utter hell on earth. Screams, wails, and the tooth-gritting roar of collapsing buildings mixed together to form a symphony of death. The ground trembled violently, as if an angry dragon was turning over deep beneath the earth. Every second, countless glass curtain walls shattered, raining down on the heads of the panicked crowd like a downpour. The asphalt roads were like fragile wafers, splitting into bottomless cracks. Some cars drove straight into them, falling before their brake lights even had a chance to flicker. The culprit behind all this stood in the very center of the city, like a moving mountain of horror built from muscle and violence. It was a giant. A true giant. His height exceeded 500 meters, perhaps even more. His head pierced through the clouds, and the heat from every breath he exhaled formed small cyclones in midair. He was completely naked, his skin an unnatural bronze. It wasn't just muscle, it was bundles of fiber as hard as rock and as tight as steel. Each bulging muscle looked like a small hill, with blood vessels like black pythons coiled around the mountain, throbbing with a terrifying blood flow that could burst an elephant's heart instantly. This was the human who had mutated after taking the ultimate steroid drug, Biceps King, Marguerite. Every step he took triggered a localized earthquake. As his massive foot hit the ground with a boom, whether it was a dozen-story office building or a sturdy air raid shelter, it would instantly be crushed into a two-dimensional photograph. The lives inside didn't even have time to feel pain before they turned into a smear of red graffiti. Power. This is invincible power. Brother. Marguerite laughed wildly at the sky, his voice booming like thunder, rupturing the eardrums of everyone within several kilometers and making them bleed. Look. These humans who were so arrogant just a moment ago are now like a swarm of scurrying ants. Standing on his left shoulder was a small man wearing glasses and a white lab coat. This was Fukago, Marguerite's older brother. He was also the developer of this perverse drug. At this moment, he was clutching a few hairs on his brother's shoulder, a near-manic smile of excitement on his face, the light of ambition flashing behind his lenses. That's right. Exactly. Brother. Fukago waved his fist, shouting with spittle flying everywhere. You are the strongest. In this world, whether it's the so-called army or that bullshit hero association, they are all trash before your absolute power. We will conquer the world. We will make everyone kneel and tremble at our feet. He had done it. He had truly created the ultimate biological weapon. With this power, all those who once looked down on him and mocked his research direction would have to pay the price. Meanwhile, high in the sky hundreds of kilometers away, a golden stream of light was tearing through the atmosphere at an incomprehensible speed, rapidly approaching. It was Su Cheng. He had pushed the power of the glint fruit to its limit, his entire being transformed into a pure flow of photons, trailing a golden line thousands of meters long across the high altitude, as if the sky itself had been sliced open. Although his wife at home, Tatsumaki, had already set out, Su Cheng knew that while her speed was fast, it was still hard for her to compare with the speed of light in a pure straight line movement. Besides, he hadn't fully digested breakfast yet. It was a good time to come out for some exercise and see if he could reap some benefits from this big guy. What an exaggerated size. Su Cheng came to a sudden halt high in the air, his body rematerializing. Still in his sharp suit with his hairstyle perfectly intact, he floated above the clouds with his hands in his pockets, looking down at the demon god-like giant below. Even having seen the movie special effects of his previous life, seeing a creature several hundred meters tall with his own eyes still gave him a visual shock. This kind of volume was, in itself, an unsolvable form of violence. Even if he didn't attack, just falling over and rolling around would likely wipe out half of City D. For a monster of this level, the system should give some good stuff, right? Su Cheng narrowed his eyes, golden light swirling in his pupils. His observation hockey scanned the entire battlefield like radar. He was looking for that special sign in point. Given the system's usual habits, such a major plot node would surely require being near a core character or location to trigger. Just then, his gaze locked onto the giant's other shoulder. There was an extremely inconspicuous yellow dot. An ordinary person wouldn't even be able to see the yellow dot at this distance, let alone see it clearly, but Su Cheng's vision was currently photon-enhanced, making it comparable to an astronomical telescope. He saw it clearly. It was a bald head. Wearing that faded yellow superhero suit with a red cape and a slightly worn belt buckle, he was currently standing on the giant's shoulder with his arms crossed. He looked ahead with a blank, unmotivated expression. His dead fish eyes revealed not fear or anger, but a deep sense of boredom. Saitama, the true protagonist of this world, the invincible caped Baldy. He was indeed here. The corners of Su Cheng's mouth curled up slightly. This was perfect, since there was a powerhouse to carry the load, he didn't need to exert himself in a hard fight. He could just relax his support and pick up any leftovers. With a flash, he didn't land directly next to Saitama, but chose a relatively hidden spot, landing in the forest of hair at the back of the giant's head, which felt like steel needles. System, is there a sign in mission? He muttered in his mind. Ding! Large-scale disaster scene detected. Sign in countdown. 30 seconds. Please remain within the current area, host. There was one indeed. Su Cheng leaned back contentedly against a strand of hair thicker than a tree, as leisurely as if sitting on a park bench, completely ignoring the tragedy unfolding below. Meanwhile, up front, Fukago was still incessantly delivering a speech to the air. Conquest. Slaughter. Brother. Look over there. That's the direction of City B. Let's walk over there and trample it flat too. He was dancing with excitement, completely unaware that an uninvited guest had appeared on his other shoulder. Intel. Saitama impatiently picked his ear. Hey. The voice wasn't loud, but it sounded exceptionally clear at high altitude. Could you put some pants on? Also, stop shouting here. It's annoying. Fukago froze instantly, his laughter cutting off like a strangled duck. He whipped his head around, looking through his thick lenses in disbelief at the bald man standing on his brother's other shoulder. When did this guy get up here? How was there no sound at all? And, what kind of attitude was this? Who are you? Fukago screamed, his finger trembling as he pointed at Saitama. You lowly insect. How dare you stand on the shoulder of the strongest being? It's a total desecration of a god. Saitama looked at him indifferently, his gaze becoming even more vacant. Huh. Strongest. You're not even wearing pants and you dare call yourself the strongest. I'm a hero for fun. My name is Saitama. There was supposed to be a supermarket sale today, and I was planning to go grab those half-price leeks, but this big guy blocked my way. I'm a bit annoyed. Hearing such a ridiculous reason, Fukago almost had a brain hemorrhage from anger. A sale. Leaks. Is this guy's brain broken? Facing a terrifying existence that could destroy the world, he was actually worried about some fool leaks. Kill him. Brother. Kill him now. Fukago stomped his feet frantically, shouting into Marguerite's large ear. Swat him like a fly. Squash him flat. Marguerite had clearly heard the provocation from this bald insect as well. His massive eyes, like searchlights, turned over, staring fixedly at Saitama standing on his left shoulder. His gaze was filled with tyranny and disdain. I hate flies the most too. Marguerite's voice was deep and thick, carrying a heavy echo. He slowly raised his right hand. That palm, when spread out, was larger than a football field. It covered the sky and blocked the sun, casting a massive shadow. Die. There were no fancy moves. Just a simple slap downward. But this seemingly simple strike carried world-destroying power. The air was rapidly compressed, creating sonic booms. The wind from the palm alone was enough to blow a tank away. Hiding in the forest of hair at the back of the head, Su Cheng shook his head as he watched this familiar scene, silently lighting a candle for the older brother. The famous, absurdly tragic blunder from the original story was finally about to happen. This is what they call asking for it. Wait. Brother. Don't slap this side. Fukago suddenly realized something was wrong. The area covered by that massive palm was too large, it didn't distinguish between friend and foe. He was standing on the shoulder opposite the bald guy, and at this angle. He was also within the attack range. I'm over here. I'm on the right shoulder. Are you going to slap me to death too? Stop. Stop it now. Fukago screamed at the top of his lungs, waving his hands in an attempt to get his brother to stop. But in this adrenaline-fueled, slaughter-obsessed berserk state, Marguerite's brain was clearly stuffed with muscle. His reaction was more than a beat too slow. He heard his brother's voice, but the momentum of his palm could no longer be restrained. Slap. An incredibly crisp yet massive sound echoed over City D. It was as if someone had slammed two giant iron plates together with all their might. In that instant, blood splattered. It wasn't Saitama's blood. It was the unfortunate brother, Fukago. He was like a water-filled tomato. Under that massive palm, he had no resistance and was turned directly into a smear of red paste. He didn't even have time to let out a scream. The entire man was gone. Marguerite's palm slowly moved away. A jarring bloodstain remained on his shoulder, along with a few fragments of a white lab coat drifting slowly in the high-altitude wind. Meanwhile, the target who should have been slapped to death, Saitama. He had used his incredible jumping power to leap to the other side, standing in the air unharmed. He scratched his cheek awkwardly as he looked at the bloodstain on the shoulder. Ah, that. It looks like you slapped your brother to death. Marguerite froze. He stared blankly at his palm, stained with his kin's blood, and then at the empty shoulder. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Only the whistling wind echoed in his ears. Emotions called despair and sorrow spread through his heart like poison, then instantly transformed into a towering rage. It was a relentless fury. Brother. Marguerite's voice trembled. Then came a roar that shook the heavens and earth. Ah. Brother. He whipped his head around, his eyes instantly bloodshot as if two fires of hell were burning within them, locking onto the culprit who had caused him to accidentally kill his closest relative, the bald guy. Unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. You caused my brother's death. I'm going to smash you into meat paste. I'm going to grind you into powder. Marguerite went mad. His massive fists clenched tight, his muscles bulging as if they were about to explode. That aura was 100 times more terrifying than when he simply wanted to destroy the city. The true berserk state had begun. And right at that moment. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Sign in successful at the center of the Giant's Rage event. The pleasant system notification sounded in Su Cheng's mind. With a flash, he turned into a golden light, landing gracefully in the storm atop a building that hadn't yet collapsed, far away from the center of the battlefield that was about to become a meat grinder. That's the end of part 1. Part 2 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel for more stories.